esta reunión en el canal de español. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Is the room open? Okay, thank you. If you wish to view closed captions of this meeting, please view the meeting on the SMUHSD board meeting YouTube channel. The link to the YouTube channel can be found on our website. You may view the captions in English as we live stream our meeting tonight, and you may view the captions in a variety of other languages if you choose to watch after this meeting has ended. Viewers may request additional accommodations by calling 650-558-2201. It's 650-558-2201. In closed session, the board, upon motion of trustees Leeswire and seconded by trustee Hanley, moved to approve 3 special education settlements with a vote of 5-0. This is a public meeting of the San Mateo Union High School District Board of Trustees. If you wish to make a comment about an agenda item or during the public comment section at the beginning of the agenda, please send an email to comments@smuhsd.org with your name, address, email address, and your Zoom name if different, and the item under which you would like to comment. The board president will call on you. Please note that comments are limited. Tonight, they'll be limited to 2 minutes, given the number of speakers. The board president may increase or decrease this time, which is normally 3 minutes, the time presented for public presentation, depending on the matter, on the topics, and the number of people wishing to be heard. I think that's all the T's and C's I need to deal with. There's no communication to the board. And we're going to move to the consent. Well, actually, public, is there any public comment on a general nature?
No, sir. We have comments on item L1, but no general public comments right now.
Okay. I'm going to ask the board if anyone wishes to comment. Anyone has a brief comment they want to throw in tonight?
Just general board comments?
Yes.
I do. I have a general, but I just wanted to acknowledge that we are on Remy Tush Aloni land. I also wanted to acknowledge that this month is Latinx History Month, Spinal Cord Injury Awareness Month, Diabetes Awareness Month, and Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, which is very important, especially with our mental health. I also wanted to encourage people, if they need any accessibility, to let us know beforehand. If they need anything captioned or any like ASL interpretation or language interpretation. I wanted to acknowledge our interpreter. Thank you for being here. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, we ought to have an over and an under on when the first mistake of the night will be. In the future, I will do this better. I want to acknowledge, and we'll call their names as part of roll call for our new student board members, Taylor Wong and Rebecca Buss. Do I have your names correct?
Yes, you do.
Okay, so we're gonna in the future we will call and take attendance and include your names there. And also, this is trying to change things up a little bit. There are probably going to be 2 opportunities for you to speak. One of a general nature that the board's making comments now, and I'll call on you in a second. And then when you have your ASB reports and other things, you'll be called on then. And you're welcome to speak on any item as it comes up. So participate and enjoy yourself. Did any other board members have any comments?
I just want to commend you for doing that and saying that for the board member. I like the adjustments. I like the change. I know Leahy and I have been talking to administration about making changes like this so that they feel more included. So welcome student board members as part of our board. And I'm really glad to see that it's going to be at this time and also about the informational time when you can tell us what's going on at the schools. So thank you.
Yes, welcome.
Okay, any other? Then I will quickly acknowledge, I really enjoyed being out at the Penn dedication last week with my colleagues. And it was good to see people, even if I kept my mask on most of the time. And by the time I really wanted to take my mask off, all the food was gone. So there was no reason to take it off. But it was a good occasion. It was nice to see so many of the Burlingame city officials there. It was also nice to see so many of the local businesses turn out. And I think, and they were very enthusiastic about Penn being there in the Burlingame community. So I think there's all the potential in the world. And I think everybody really enjoyed that opportunity. So.
Can I just say that, Bob, you did a great job in your speech. So did Dr. Skelly, and Ron, the principal of Penn, did an awesome job. So I think that needs to be noted as well.
Thank you. Okay, so if there's no other comment, and then who would like to go first from the student board perspective? Who wants to make their first comment?
Mr. Griffin, do you mind if I introduce the board members, Taylor and Rebecca? I can just tell you a little bit about them and kind of tell you some of our plans for the year. So we are so thrilled and delighted tonight to have Taylor Wong with us, who is a 12th grader from Burlingame High School, and Rebecca Buss, who is an 11th grader from San Mateo High School. In the future, we plan to have representatives from across the district, as well as we hope to incorporate students who are part of the Youth Catalyst Liberatory Leadership Group. And I will be working with these students in the coming weeks to help them maximize their involvement and help elevate stories of students who aren't typically represented at the board meetings. So the students that we have tonight, Taylor and Rebecca, they have not met with their UASB yet this year. So they may not have lengthy reports, but we're so thrilled to have them. And I do know that one of them has an exam tomorrow. And so they may not be with us all night, but they'll be here as long as they can, and hopefully through some of the beginning items. So with that, I'm going to say, take it away, Taylor.
Okay, hello everyone. As Ms. Chalkley introduced, I'm Taylor. I'm a 12th grader at BHS. So right now, Burlingame, again, as Ms. Zuniga, thank you so much for pointing out, is Latin American Heritage Month, and it's also as well as like Diabetes and Suicide Awareness Month. So I'm actually in the commission in our leadership class responsible for planning that. So we are hosting an event for Latin American Heritage Month. We have a bulletin board at our campus with about some basic history about the month and why it's important. We are also working with our school's wellness counselors to devise a bulletin board, also some informational flyers for students to see just how important and basically just how significant like mental health issues are around, especially on teenagers. We often like to think that it's not as important as we like to think, but really it's a lot of people have been influenced by it, and it's really important to highlight this. Yeah, so that's mostly for that. Other than that, we also have Club Week coming up, where for students will be to meet our various clubs that are on campus and join them. And that's mostly for it for this month and next month. I do believe there's also we got some sports games coming up, like football. But other than that, that's mainly what we're doing here at BHS. Thank you.
So Rebecca, you want to tell us anything about yourself, or just say a few words here, as much or as little?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Rebecca. As Ms. Chalkley mentioned, I'm a junior at San Mateo High School. Right now at San Mateo, I feel like we're really focusing on building community because we really didn't have that last year. And it's great to be back in person and kind of have that social aspect of the school environment. And so in order to build community, we had today, actually, we went into the freshman tutorials, which is kind of like a period to like work on schoolwork. And my partner and I in leadership, we made a video kind of just introducing the school and how to get involved. So we're really kind of trying to push the freshmen to really get involved in our school, just to really build that community and just make sure everyone feels very welcome at San Mateo.
Okay, well, thank the two of you. There is another place in the agenda. If you are still here, if you're not, we understand that you have other pressing matters. So appreciate your comments and your input. The consent agenda. Does anybody wish to pull an item? Sir.
I'd like to pull J7.
I move approval.
We got a request to pull J7.
And a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so we had Trustee Lees-Dwyer with the motion, Trustee Hanley with the second. With the consent agenda, less J7.
And I pulled J5, sorry,
Okay,
and 6. I guess they're similar.
okay, so we were going to pull J7. We're now pulling J5, J6, and J7. The motion was based on J7 only. Does that motion stand, Trustees Lees-Dwyer, for J?
I move approval less the pulled items.
There
Okay,
you go.
and your second still stands,
Stand.
or Trustee Hanley second.
Second.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Trustee Andrade Zuniga, how do you vote?
I vote yes as soon as we answer the questions.
No, we're not voting on 5, 6, or 7.
Oh, okay, great. Then I vote yes. Sorry.
Okay, Trustee Land,
Yes.
Trustee Lees-Dwyer,
Yes.
Trustee Hanley,
Yes.
I'll vote yes. And so that takes care of the bulk of the consent items. J5. You have a specific question
Yeah, for 5 and 6.
for 5. Okay, we'll try to take them if you can ask the
Well,
question.
they're kind of the same for both. I just want to know what type of protections there are for our students that are going to be traveling on this field trip in terms of like COVID protocols. What type of COVID protocols are there for the tournament, and then also for Sarah High School? Yeah, so for both, I guess, what are the protocols for the tournaments and also for the teams that our students will be playing against? Because I'm sure our students will be taking all precautions.
Okay. Does the administration want to call on someone, or are they gonna?
I don't know if Mr. Simmons is on this. He's the person who approves these trips, but I can assure you that whatever protocols we have for students would be applicable during this activity as well. So J5 is about water polo. The reason these things are on here is because they are trips. The J was J 5 and 6. J6 is out of state. I'm not sure why J5 is on the agenda.
It's to approve the funding for it, right? But aside from that, I just want to know, I guess we could talk offline. I just want to know that our kids are going to be safe, you know?
Yes, yeah, we can provide that information in a weekly.
Thank you.
Okay, if we're looking at this, and on J5, the weekly will probably be out after they're on their way. So at some level, we have protocols in place, which I don't know how, because water.
And I'm actually not sure why this is even on the agenda, given that it's in state, and our board policy have us bringing these if they're out of state. So I need to know that, but you can be.
I thought it was more than 50 miles. Isn't there a mileage thing on this too? Because it's in Roseville.
Mhm.
It could be that there's a mileage thing that isn't. Oh, and you know what? It's the overnight. We
Yes, the
have to
overnight.
approve everything that's an overnight. That's the board policy.
That's the board policy.
Sorry.
have one night that they're staying. Yeah.
Staying.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's one night, so we have to approve it.
Thank you. Yeah, because I don't have the answers tonight, but I can assure you that between the principal and others, maybe during this meeting, we can get some answer for you. Before the night is over.
Dr.
Thank
Scully, I do have I'm in contact with Brian Simmons, and he is saying they will use standard protocols that we are using for all athletic events right now. I think they've talked through it. So everything that we have in place in terms of protocols for water polo and the basketball tournament, I think they've affirmed that those things are going to be in place for these events.
Okay. Okay, I mean, and that's a good, that confirms what the superintendent said. And if you can get us more information on, on that, though, the water polo, particularly, whatever we can.
Yeah, the other one's not until January.
So
Yeah.
I
Right.
hate to be so if we approve one of the agenda items tonight, well, that may change the protocols, right? For sports.
Well, it won't for this day,
It's not effective.
It's not effective till,
the 20th.
okay, so based on what you're saying is if we pass something today, it will change only for those events after these two,
After the one.
after the first one.
After the first one, correct.
These events are in December.
No,
No,
one
one's
is
in
tomorrow.
September.
Oh, one's in,
September 10th and
okay,
11th.
sorry. I thought they were both in December.
No,
No,
one
the
is,
second one's in December.
yeah, one
Okay.
is the 10th and 11th.
So we still ask you to,
Yes.
tomorrow we've got kids kidding on it. I'm sorry about this.
No.
We'll clean it up, but we have kids that are planning on driving to Roseville tomorrow.
So we should.
So you
have
should
this-
approve it.
This is passage. We have to pass this.
Yeah, I mean, and it's fine. We appreciate we're just trying to do our best, we're all struggling, trying to keep everything going. So don't think that, we could do anything more than we can do. So,
Can I call the question for J5 and J6 to vote?
yeah, I'm gonna ask for a motion on J5 and J6.
Okay, so moved for both.
Okay, so we have a motion for J5 and 6. Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, so trustee Lamb with the motion, trustee Lees Dwyer with the second, trustee Andrade Zuniga, how do you vote?
I'll vote yes.
Trustee Land,
Yes.
trustee Lees Dwyer,
yes.
trustee Hanley,
Yes.
I'll vote yes. And so J5 and 6 pass 5-0. J7.
So I pulled J7 because I really have a pet peeve about putting resolutions, proclamations, site plans on a consent agenda because I feel they're very important. I think trustee Zuniga made a very important point. So did our student member Taylor Wong, to talk about how important it is for National Hispanic Month and Latinx Heritage Month. And I think we should vote on this as a proclamation and resolution and identify this as an important time and recognize that. So I pulled it just so we can formally vote and approve this resolution.
I mean, that's fine. And actually, so when we were talking about, and I believe the superintendent was actually going to have remarks formal remarks related to this as part of the report, his report. And we were trying to get, we have a big agenda, but we're.
I hear you, but again, it's a big agenda, but this is important. And that's
Okay,
my
well,
point.
Okay, point well taken.
There's one thing that I wanted to add, if I could. I just wanted to remove Hispanic from the title. It's not as accepted anymore. It's kind of outdated for many reasons. And so if we could do that, that would be great, because a lot of us don't use Hispanic anymore.
Yeah, I totally agree. But unfortunately, the national, it's how it's described in our national heritage months. They have not changed it yet.
They need to change it.
I totally agree, but it's a national
No,
issue.
the nation needs to change it too.
Yeah.
Okay, is there a motion?
I would say, I would move that we approve it as it
That's
reads.
fair. Second,
Okay, trustees Lees Dwyer with the motion, trustee Lamb with the second, trustee Andrade Zuniga. How do you vote?
I vote yes because it's my, those are my people, but I don't like the Hispanic.
Okay, trustee Land,
I hear you. I agree, but I'm voting yes.
trustee Lees Dwyer,
I vote yes. Yes.
trustee Hanley.
Yes.
Okay, and I'll vote yes. And the motion will pass five. The proclamation is adopted, passes 5-0. And we appreciate everybody's passion. Got to get to the regular reports for the superintendent.
Okay, we have, as mentioned, a long night, so I'll make my report short. To paraphrase a popular Christmas song, it's beginning to feel a lot like a normal school year, except that we have masks. Most of the experiences of students are learning, going to class, a little bit different bell schedule, eating lunch outside together. But otherwise, all the activities you would walk around the school, it feels like a normal year. So we're really excited about that. I want to thank Ms. Chalkley and the faculty, staff, and administration at Peninsula for one of the best ribbon cutting school openings that I've ever had the great pleasure to participate in. I'm not sure when this county will see another high school opening or a new school built, but if they don't, this is a great way to cap it off. President Griffin mentioned businesses there, the city council. I'm going to try to write a note on your behalf to the city council to really appreciate how much they embraced the school there. It was really a nice event. We still have the specter of COVID, unfortunately, hanging over us, and we'll be discussing that issue tonight. And so included in there will be some reports about some of the health conditions and some of the things that we're dealing with. I want to congratulate Trustee Andrade Zuniga, who we just learned this week earned her master's in governance online through the California School Boards Association. I think it's a tribute to her dedication to the board, her modeling what she expects from students in terms of learning and growing and developing as a board member, her commitment to that work, as well as just wanting to be a really good board member. The California School Board Association puts this on, and I think it helps board members both understand what goes on in their district, but also some of the issues that happen at other times. And maybe next time you could talk a little bit about the Masters in Governance, just so the public knows the work that you do. Sports are on in earnest. It's preseason right now. The only home game this Friday is San Mateo hosts the Scots of Carlmont, and it should be a lot of fun this Friday night. We've had big crowds and people are enthusiastic about being at events. At the next board meeting at 5:30, we have a study, not a study session, but a, what's it called? We have the tenure teacher permanent status celebration. We're looking forward to that, and it'll start at 5:30. So we look forward to welcoming those folks in. We have 50 of them, so it'll be sort of a speed round, but it should be a lot of fun. And then finally, I want to recognize, and I know that Dr. Black will mention this during the personnel report, but it's worth spending a moment and thanking Dan Dobbins for his 38 and a half years of service to this district as a bus driver. I don't know his whole career ascension up the district, but he spent certainly my time and maybe many more years as the director of transportation in this district. He retired for noble family reasons. We will miss him greatly. I look forward to having breakfast with him a week from Wednesday. Dan is one of the most colorful, positive, earnest, caring people that you will ever encounter. The answer to a request is never no. It's how can I work through this and make it happen? His department exemplifies that spirit, and we will miss him greatly, but know that he's got so many relatives that are in the district that he'll never fully leave us, but we're just really, really grateful for his service. So that's the end of my report.
Okay, the student board members, Taylor or Rebecca, would you like to add anything to your earlier reports and comments? Okay, we got a head shake.
I guess Rebecca, but no, I guess the only thing I would say is just, it's important to remember just Heritage Months and especially cultural awareness, especially remember all the contributions that minority groups and everyone has contributed to our community and really recognize our diversity and celebrate that.
Sound like a good comment.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. K3, report of the District Teachers Association.
Good evening, President Griffin, members of the board, and district cabinet. Dr. Skelly, you said it so well about Dan. Dan has been a colleague and a welcome participant in so many collaborative meetings over the years. He has a great sense of humor. In addition to what you said, he has a great sense of humor, and he always knows how to make people feel comfortable. And I think one of his talents is just being sort of the everyman. And I'll miss Dan a lot. I had both of his daughters in class, and it's going to be a loss for our district. But as you say, his department exemplifies his personality, and I think he will be missed, but we're still in good hands. So we are closing in on our first 6-week marking period, and the excitement and exuberance of being back in person has really not worn off. As an educator, it's truly rewarding both professionally and personally to have students back in class compared to our experience last year. As I've said many times before, however, we must remain vigilant in our effort to do everything we can to make schools safer and keep schools open. I'm pleased with the district's proposal to require vaccination for extracurricular activities. It's certainly a step in the right direction. That said, the proposal seems lacking in that there is no mention of a specific requirement for spectators, important for indoor sports, or for staff. The proposal must also be accompanied by a significant effort to provide those vaccination opportunities and to help facilitate the public outreach to support all students in meeting the requirement. Again, step in the right direction, and we're working hard in that vein of making schools safer, but we can do better. We must do better. Today, the LAUSD school board voted to require that all persons, teachers, staff, and students be vaccinated in order to continue with any in-person learning. We should follow suit. We have the capability to do so. Today, President Biden made a national directive to require all but the smallest businesses to require vaccinations or weekly testing. While California schools are already doing this, his actions should not be considered arbitrary or superfluous. On the contrary, both Biden's action and the LAUSD decision are in response to the present conditions of public health. Moreover, they are the response to the fact that schools truly represent an overwhelmingly significant factor in controlling the spread of COVID. On the larger scene, of the 40 million confirmed US COVID cases since the beginning of the pandemic, 4 million, that's 10%, have been in the last month alone. Hospitals are again becoming overwhelmed. Rationing care has become the norm in many places. There were 18,500 deaths reported in the US in the months of June and July combined, a number that is surely undercounted, but still staggering. But there were over 10,000 reported in the last week alone. The American Academy of Pediatrics reported this week that over 1 in 4, 27% of new cases are now attributed to children 17 or under. 1 in 5 schools have closed in Kentucky. 45% of districts have closed in Texas. 50% of the outbreaks in the entire state of Georgia are in K-12 schools. And 15 Dade County school employees in Florida died in the past 10 days. I know, and I'm confident, that we are in better shape in our district than many of the other districts in our nation. That said, we cannot deny that this surge is real and that we are not out of the woods yet. We must remain vigilant. As I've said before, we must do better. We owe it to the community. We must continue to improve and maintain ventilation. We must facilitate vaccinations. And unfortunately, I believe we must prepare contingency plans in the case that we need to shift to distance learning. We must admit that we cannot make schools truly safe, but only safer. To that end, I will again demand that we broaden our vaccine requirement and increase rates of testing for all persons, regardless of vaccination status. It's certainly good news, as mentioned in the presentation, that there were no positive cases in the 260 tests performed on the particular 3 days of September, the 7th, the 8th, and the 9th. But suggesting that that data is indicative of COVID in the community is misleading at best. In the same 3-day period, we were notified of at least 3 positive cases on our campuses. Indeed, we have been notified of at least 18 positive cases on our campuses since the start of school. Frustratingly, these notices are often delayed by a week or more from the actual exposure on campus. That's not to find fault, but the delay in notification is a direct result of our ineffective testing protocol in terms of resources and staffing directed towards it. We can do better to make schools safer. Has the district even investigated the potential for pool testing and the possibility that that might minimize the impact on our staffing? Also, remember that this is an aerosol transmitted disease. As I've said before, mask fit and quality matter. Masking is only effective when quality and fit are considered. A loose face cloth covering does little to prevent aerosol transmission, not to mention neck gaiters. We must provide, the district must provide N95 or KN95s that are readily available to all employees and students who need them. Anything less will not make kids safer, will not make schools safer. To those who say we don't have the staff or the money or the resources, I say hire the staff, find the money, use the resources. There are truly millions of dollars in free money from the state and federal governments for these efforts. We, in the presentation tonight, will see that we have a $28 million ending balance. It's simply a matter of choice. Don't wait until it's too late to spend a little bit more. We have the ability to do better, and the community deserves better. Thank you.
Thank you. Report of the CSEA Chapter 519 representative. Good evening.
Good evening, President Griffin, members of the board, and Dr. Skelly. Before I make our CSEA statement tonight, I would like to thank Dr. Skelly for the kind words that you had for my brother, Dan Dobbins. He has spent 38 years plus at the district in transportation, and anyone who knows him, he has had his heart and his little fingers in every part of the district over the time that he has spent here. And I believe the district will miss him, not as much as transportation will miss him. He is amazing, and he's done an amazing job at the district. Okay, so moving on to our statement. Can you believe August has come and gone already? For some, probably most, it feels like we've been back for months. Thank you, health aides and attendance clerks, for your tireless work, keeping us informed with attendance reporting, contact tracing, and COVID testing. Another huge thank you to Nutrition Services for serving additional students with free meals on campus. I know it gives them great joy to provide nutritious meals to all students. Over the summer, President Biden signed legislation known as the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act. We think this is an important holiday to recognize, and we hope the district will agree and negotiate with us, as several local San Mateo County schools, actually San Mateo County and surrounding school districts like Redwood City, San Mateo County Community College District, and Ravenswood have provided this holiday for all their employees. CSEA is in negotiation with the San Mateo County Office of Education over the implementation of the Juneteenth holiday for the 2021 calendar year and beyond. After hearing back to school updates on August 12th, CSEA would like to thank our site principals for recognizing classified staff during their first day updates. Along with teachers, we are stronger together. While our sites are bubbling with excitement, football games, welcome back events, spirit gear sales, and more, all with the atmosphere of equity and inclusion, CSEA members couldn't help but feel completely overlooked and disregarded after reading the joint statement released from the district and Teachers Association. Thank you, Craig and team, for ardently negotiating salary improvements for your members, which will be presented to the board on September 23rd for approval. Per our current contract terms, we strongly believe CSEA members should be included in the recommendation, and we look forward to preparing a joint statement with Dr. Skelling. Additionally, the district has been extremely busy with retirements and new hires across the district. We welcome new faces, new memberships, and thank all our retirees for their contributions. You will not be forgotten. Although we are back, it seems as if there hasn't been anything normal this school year. As processes and procedures continue to change, we ask for update and clear direction, as well as proper training for our new members. Before I say thank you and good night, I'd like to let you know our chapter was able to grant 4 of our members $500 scholarships for either personal or child for their vocational or college education. We are happy to say this is our 3rd annual scholarship grant. We look forward to providing this to our members for years to come. So here's my official good night and thank you for your time.
Thank you. K5, report of San Mateo Adult School Teachers Association. Ms. Shockley, is there?
Paula.
We have Paula Ackerman. So Paula, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and speak, please.
Ms. Ackerman or Paula?
Perhaps we should move on and,
Okay, we're going to go in L1, so we'll.
yeah.
Okay, and if she's able to come on at a time between items, we'll certainly try to fit in the report. So it's an important area. L1, approve the specific draft board. Paula?
I don't know how, it's not working.
Ms. Ackerman, you give your report even if you can't get your camera on.
Okay. Well, now I'm hanging from the floor. That's interesting.
Hello.
Well.
Okay.
I never cease to amaze myself. Just carry on. Okay. Good evening. I'm Paula Ackerman, a teacher from the adult school, and I would like to share with you this fall, our leaders, our teachers are rising to the challenge of providing classes through a variety of means on campus, hybrid, and online. We know many of our students face many vulnerabilities, and we are making every effort to provide classes in a way that strengthens their abilities to continue moving forward in uncertain times. The adult school is a real anchor for many of our students, and we have established a satellite ESL programs in San Bruno and in Foster City, which are up and running like mad. We have developed classes in 3 ways. One is a hybrid where they stay home on Monday and Friday morning for 3 hours, and then they come to campus on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday mornings from 9 to 12. That way they get a chance of seeing what it's like back at school and also then back at home. So they're in the class 5 days, but 2 days home and 3 days in school. Another aspect that they have is online, where the teacher is on campus. He or she teaches 5 mornings, Monday through Friday, from 9 to 12 noon. And during that time, we have Pat Brown, our ESL coordinator, checking in with all of the teachers, all of the students, and seeing if anything is needed. If there is needed, the problem solved, and she goes on. And we have another class that meets in the afternoon. That is 5 afternoons, usually a writing process. So we're trying and seeing, and we're really impressed that the students are going along and doing very well and telling us, teacher, this is great. Will it always be this way? And we say, we'll have to wait and see. We're just as curious as you. And we thank you for your backing and your coming to class and keeping on learning. So thank you so much. And it's been wonderful hearing all the good things that you folks have been going through. And it is nice to see the students back and talking and being together. So keep it going and it'll be fantastic.
Thank you. And I
Thank
see
you.
you just flipped over now from the ceiling to the ground.
I'm a little dizzy, but I think I'll get through it.
Thank you. We appreciate
Thank
your
you all.
comments.
Good night.
Night. L1, approve the board policy 6145, student vaccination requirement. I'm going to propose, and all this is a suggestion that the district administration, if they have a presentation, that they make their presentation, then we hear public comments, and then we can weigh in on it. So.
Sounds good to me.
That's good.
Okay, let's go. Thank you.
Okay, you got the screen up. Okay, so I'll just ask you to advance it when the time comes. Okay, at the last board meeting, the board asked staff to come back with a presentation about a potential requirement that students were vaccinated as a prerequisite for participation in extracurricular activities. It's staff's job to come and present pros and cons of any policy change or policy initiative, and then the board to deliberate, the community to weigh in. I know the board has received lots of emails, and we have a list of speakers tonight who come. So we want to have a spirited discussion about this. There are pros and cons on this topic, and we'll try to present this, but we're also going to try to provide some background in terms of where we are with the activities that we're doing. Mr. Childers mentioned some of those, but we'll go into some of those detail, and then we'll outline the policy here. So if you go to the next slide, next slide too. We'll provide some background information on the district and county COVID data, vaccination numbers and percentages, testing to date, and plans to ramp up efforts, vaccination efforts, and the lack of success that we've had so far, COVID cases and their context, and then some of the California Department of Public Health guidance for unvaccinated students. Next slide. So the district has been testing unvaccinated students once a week since August 23rd. As you know, the
students or staff?
I'm sorry, staff. Once a week since August 23rd. The mandate, the requirement that staff are vaccinated starts October 15th. But we started to do that. Most of the staff have participated in that. Not every staff member has shown up, and that's not a state requirement that they do so yet. But we've been offering it. Most of the employees have done that. This week, the district began strongly encouraging unvaccinated students to test and offering testing to all students and staff. This week, on Tuesday, we had testing in San Mateo that included adult school staff, bridge staff, and any staff member who wanted to be tested at San Mateo High School. And then Today we were at Cappuccino today and tested there. And tomorrow, I believe we're at Hillsdale, but I'm just not sure where we'll be. And then next week we'll go to the other sites to test as well as Middle College. The district can't require students and unvaccinated staff, and unvaccinated staff are not required to test until October 15th. We will test more, but this, and Ms. Childers is right, the test kits are free, but the staffing to do that and whatever service you use is costly. And it's hard to get staff right now. I was on a call today with the other superintendents in our area, and we're far ahead of other school districts in this testing regimen and the student testing as well. In terms of vaccines, we did have a vaccine event on Friday, August 27th. We called all the students, unvaccinated students at these schools. We had 28 CAP students and 16 Hillsdale students show up for vaccinations. This was, given the effort that we put in, our view was that was, we were very disappointed in those numbers, given that there are 300 kids roughly who aren't vaccinated, or that we don't know that they're vaccinated, or who responded that they're not vaccinated at Cappuccino. That number is less than 10% who responded. If you go to the next slide here, some local data. There is some evidence that that cases, we've reached a crest, and that perhaps, if we're fortunate, the number of cases will go down. These are confirmed cases. All this stuff is just based on testing, but it's the number of positive cases is down almost, the 30-day rolling average is down almost 500 cases since September 1st. The R, which is the measure of contagion, if it's below 1, means the case numbers are falling, and right now it's at 0.91. We're pleased that about 98% of staff are vaccinated per the self-attestation data. We will have to confirm that with your vaccine card or your other information before October 15th. And we've gotten many of those from staff members, but that will also provide proof that, we're getting very close to having 100% of our staff vaccinated, which is really a tribute to our staff, I think, in the seriousness with which they take it. About 82% of our students are vaccinated per parent reporting. This is also an impressive number. We'd like it to be higher, of course, but 82% is a high number. These numbers range from about 87% to 72% at Cappuccino, and the numbers are a bit lower at Peninsula High School. There are differences in percentage vaccinated by race and ethnicity. And the 80% are Asian, white students, mixed race students, and Filipino students. And then our percentages for African American, Latino, Latinx, and Pacific Islanders are lower. We're continually updating that information. The data is good, but it's not as good as it needs to be, and we're anxious to improve that. We have some good news. We did test Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and we got 260 unvaccinated and vaccinated students and staff, and there were no positive cases, which we feel good about. Obviously, that's only a sample of the folks there. The COVID dashboard. The next slide. This is a dashboard that we put together that provides background information. We have 9,000 students and 1,000 staff members. Through the week, through school yesterday or today, we had 30 positive cases. Those were students that were identified who were on our campuses while having COVID, students or staff. And the number is 30 here. We'll update that every Friday at 4 p.m. Of this total, 28 are students, 2 are staff members, 17 were unvaccinated, and 13 were vaccinated. So you'll see that obviously the number of folks getting COVID, if you're unvaccinated, are dramatically higher than those folks who are vaccinated. These numbers are about 0.4% of our overall population of students and staff, but they're higher than we would like. We think that eating outside, having so many people vaccinated, and really good, Mr. Chodas is right. We do have folks who don't have masks on properly, but the compliance around masking just has not been an issue at all. If you were to read the newspaper or you see board meetings on TV where people are sort of losing their minds about masks, we haven't had any of that. So I think that's led to a belief that when we look at the cases and the testing, we can't see any case where it points to a spread that happens on school. And if you read some of the information there, if folks obey the rules, you have a high vaccination rates, and you do things outdoors, you're not going to have spread on campus. So we're very pleased with that part. We're pleased with our efforts here. Next slide. One of the things that you hear a lot about, and this is something that we really have to work on. The vaccine protects against Delta and other variants. The cases are much lower if you have been vaccinated. And the Delta variant is, if you're not vaccinated, the Delta variant is going to get you. So it's super important that folks get vaccinated. And no vaccine is 100% effective. But vaccinated people do not end up in the hospital and they do not die unless, in very, 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 very rare cases. So we have a tool here that can help prevent new variants. It can help keep people safe. It can keep people from dying, and it can help us end the pandemic. So the vaccine, we can talk about testing, we can talk about other things, but the most powerful thing we can do besides continuing to do things that we're doing is get people vaccinated. So the next slide here talks a little bit about quarantine recommendations per the CDBH. And we've highlighted the part here that we think is so important here, that if you are in a situation in which you're a close contact and you are unvaccinated, you have to quarantine from all extracurricular activities at school, including sports and activities within the community setting for up to 10 days. And so, this has great ramifications for the activities that students are doing. If you're talking about sports teams, if players who are unvaccinated can't participate, that has dramatic effects on the other participants in that sport. And so, I think as a district, this board and staff have put an emphasis on extracurricular activities during this pandemic that is second to none. We were the first out of the gate with providing students the opportunities to participate in extracurricular activities because we know how important they are. And when games are canceled, when there are cases such that students can't play, that's an experience for students that they've lost out on. And further, when we talk about athletics and other activities, those are privileges. They're not rights that come with a free and appropriate public education. They're opportunities for students to represent our school, to participate in really important activities. But that is a privilege and not something that the board is legally required to provide every student. So what's our proposed board policy in response to the request from the board? Students who participate in any extracurricular activity, as defined as activities not tied to a class in which students earn a grade or part of a whole school or class activities must be vaccinated or submit a waiver request based on medical or religious reasons. Any student who has not received their first dose of the vaccine by September 20th will be removed from the activity. We believe this gives students a chance to begin that process. So the next slide is provided a definition of extracurricular activities that we can go over. It's based on Ed Code. But the point here is that sports, dances, clubs outside the school day, and dramatic performances where students participate outside of the regular classroom would be affected. So in terms of trying out for drama productions or participating in other activities at the school that are outside the school day, such as robotics club or other things, students would have to be vaccinated and at least have their first dose by September 20th in order to participate. Now, next slide. You know, when preparing this slide, you know, staff went around and around on this topic. And we understand that there are concerns and complaints today. One is that it's an uneven impact, that students from some of our students from backgrounds that are of great concern to the board are overrepresented right now in the number of students who are vaccinated. At the same time, those are communities that have been hit hardest by cases of COVID. They disproportionately suffering hospitalization, death, and other tragedies associated with this. So we understand that concern, and we want to work extra hard on this. We've got our family engagement coordinators who have relationships with parents who can help folks work through that. But we still believe that this policy, the health concerns outweigh the concerns about those differences in vaccination rates at present. Our rates for various groups are really, really high. This district should be really proud of our data. When I talk to other superintendents, they don't have the kind of rates that we do, but we want to see them even higher. And we think extracurriculars are an opportunity to do this. You know, I had a conversation with Samuel Shellman, and we have a fantastic EL soccer league. Kids love to participate in that. And this is an opportunity for us to go to those students and say, hey, yeah, you can participate. It's really important to you, but you're going to have to take a little bit of time out and get a vaccine. And she is fully on board and believes this is important work for us to do in the interest of community health. There are also vaccine concerns that you have seen in your emails, and those are, some people view those as an impingement on their freedom, or they're worried about the reaction to the vaccine. You know, the health data on this that I read, and I think is on the mainstream, is that the concerns about the reaction to the vaccine are overdrawn, are very, very small numbers, and are vastly outweighed by the benefit of the vaccine. The other issue that's come up quite a bit just in the last few days are concerns about privacy in the testing. And so, you know, we are testing unvaccinated students. We're trying the best we can to do that in a way that doesn't interfere with the privacy of families. And we've allowed families to submit proof of testing outside of school in lieu of being tested at school, if that's a concern for them. But at the same time, this is a public health matter. We call people out of class all the time, and we've tried to set these things up in ways that don't reveal anybody's identity. The next slide are things that I've already mentioned here. You know, we think that this is a really, you know, Mr. Childress again mentioned this about keeping schools open. That is our, imagine if we have to close school again. What a failure that will be. This is a step that we can take that will help us to make sure. I mean, I think schools now in the political environment will be the last to close and the first to open if things get bad. But if we have done this, what else can we do? We're doing everything we possibly can. And this is another opportunity to do something really important. So in terms of further recommendations, if you do approve this policy, I think you should ask us to return to the, at the October 28th board meeting to provide an update and modify the policy if you see things that, or we come back with recommendations to change this. And I think you should also, frankly, we've already begun to identify coaches that we don't know if they have been vaccinated yet. There's about 24 that are participating in fall activities. We're going to have to go back and check with those. But I don't know how we set up a policy for students about September 20th and having a vaccine mandate without having that same expectation for our coaches. So that would be our further recommendation. It's not exactly what you asked for, but I think it's important and related to what you said. So with that, that concludes our comments. We're eager to hear from the community and then also get feedback from the board.
Okay, I'm going to ask quickly if the board or the student board members have any clarifying questions to clarify any point made, during the presentation. But you will have ample opportunity to discuss the item and debate it after we hear from the public. So, okay, let me get my. Okay, this is in the order it came to me in my phone. Elizabeth.
Bob, sorry, I have a question before we start. I just want to clarify the dates that we have set on schedule for our district to provide vaccinations in the next couple of months and testing. Thank you.
So we don't have another vaccine set up scheduled, just given the number. The county's not willing to come out and do another vaccine event for us. I think if we had, the vaccines seem to be readily available in the community, but right now they're not willing to do that. We could consult with, maybe there's a provider out there. Safeway was offering this to campuses, so we could look at that, but at present, that isn't an issue. And then the testing, our goal is to get to weekly availability on every campus. Certainly if staff members want to travel, they can get tested almost anytime they want. And then students, our goal is certainly, in five weeks to have students tested on a weekly basis. And then staff by October 15th.
And beforehand, how many opportunities do people have to get tested on campus? On campuses, I guess.
There's testing going on every day now.
And the vaccinations.
Right now, we don't have any vaccinations setups. As mentioned, the county, doesn't want to provide that.
Well, no, but before. So how many opportunities do people have to test, or not to test, I'm sorry, to get vaccinated on our campuses before?
Well, so the Stanford Health Van has been to San Mateo and Peninsula. I believe it's coming back again. They come about once a month, so they're happy to give vaccines. And then so they're at San Mateo and at school. We're happy to transport kids, do whatever we need to get those vaccinations if families want it.
Thank you, because there has been a lot throughout the community, and yeah, and there's even mobile ones that come to your house if you can't leave. Yeah, so thank you, I appreciate that.
Can I ask a clarifying question, Bob?
Please.
Okay, under the language itself, I'm looking in the board packet because it's not up any longer. It says the requirement, students are participating in the extracurricular, and it goes on, must be vaccinated or submit a waiver request based on medical religious reasons. The next sentence is, any student who has not received their first dose of the vaccine by September 20th will be removed from the activity. So if a student submits a medical or religious request for a waiver, they still get removed?
No, the sentence, thank you. The sentences should be written differently to capture the idea that if you have a medical or religious reason, you would not have to, you wouldn't be removed from the team.
Okay, so it would be any student who has not received their first dose or has been granted
Yes.
a waiver based upon medical or religious reasons. Okay, thank you, because that was very unclear.
Thank you for
Thank you.
clarifying.
Okay, thank you for your comments or questions. We're
Dr.
gonna,
Could I just offer, I'm in communication with Sarah Devaney, and she says that the Stanford van does come 3 times a month. They came 3 times this month. We're researching alternative options, and Stanford will offer to underinsured or students who do not have insurance for vaccines. So she just wanted me to pass that along.
okay, thank you, Ms. Chalkley. Okay, as I said earlier, we're going to ask you to make your comments within the 2-minute time limit. I will acknowledge, and at the end of the meeting, we'll put this on the item. There was a communication from a Scott and Cindy Ehrman. I'm not going to read that into the record, but in the future, we're going to take steps to see if we can change our process. So Elizabeth Bear, welcome.
Yes, thank you. I just have a few questions in regards to this. So Superintendent Scully, based off the number of cases that you actually just reported, 17 unvaxxed cases versus 13 vaxxed cases, that is not a big difference. 4 people does not show a significant difference. So my first question is, how is someone that has the vaccine at risk from someone that doesn't have the vaccine? So whoever wants to answer that for me, I'd appreciate it.
We will note down your comments. You actually have we're asking for public comment. At this point, we can circle back.
Okay. No, okay, I'll keep going in because I know we're short on time.
Yes, please.
So, I mean, that is a legitimate question. I'm not just trying to be facetious. I really want to know, because it sounds like there's a lot of confusion or misunderstanding of how this particular vaccine works, which it actually does not stop the spread. So, which are show in the numbers that were in the slideshow there that Skelly was talking about. There's no real difference in those numbers of cases between those that have been vaccinated and unvaccinated. And I've got the paperwork that was also in the slideshow from the county. I appreciate Craig Childress, all the numbers he gave, but none of them were local. They were national. The local numbers are very low. In fact, there have been 0 deaths of children in between the ages of 10 to 20, I think it was. The cases 30 days in September, the cases in September are gone way down. So I'm not seeing any justification for this mandate. If the vaccines work, then it shouldn't matter if the person sitting next to you is vaccinated or not. And you're talking about the low turnout for people coming to these vaccination clinics. Those that want to be vaccinated would have already been vaccinated. The people that are not vaccinated at this point have concerns. And I understand that it was rushed through this vaccine, that's fine, but we do not have the data of long-term effects of this because it has not been out long enough to know that. So parents have concerns about giving their children something that has no long-term effects.
Okay, would you?
So I would like that to be considered when you guys vote, that there are legitimate concerns.
Okay, well, thank you for your comment.
you.
2-minute time limit. Vicki Daniel, please.
Hi, good evening. My name is Vicki Daniel. I'm a parent of a current junior in class of 2020 from Aragon and a 26-year veteran teacher at Aragon. When I first heard about this proposal, I was pleased. That feeling lasted about 10 seconds. The idea that our students can sit in our packed classes, sitting in questionably filtered air within very close 6 feet of each other or closer, rarely moving for 90 minutes or more, yet not be able to run around a court or a stage or be outside on a field is so hypocritical that it hurts. As a district, we say we care about the whole child, that we understand the mental health toll that the distance learning took last year. So now you propose to take away these activities that promote that physical and mental health. That is so hypocritical, it hurts. I understand that you are using the leverage that you have. I get it, to convince or force people to get vaccinated, a goal which I do support. But what evidence do you have that it will achieve that objective? In one informal survey at my own school with my own students, the answer was clear that it won't. What it will do is further punish or isolate a group of students whose choice to vaccinate has largely been made for them. And that is the problem. So where is the equity and concern for the whole child in that? If you mean business, mandate vaccines for school. If you want more people, do we want more people to listen to signs and get vaccinated? Yes. How to do this? This mandate is not the answer. So I encourage you to come to our schools, talk to our students, talk to the teachers, and come up with a plan that will do good rather than do more harm. Thank you.
Thank you. AG.
Hello, I have a daughter who is currently a freshman at one of your high schools, and she couldn't be happier. Despite a year and a half of crazy roller coasters due to the pandemic, she went into high school with a huge smile on her face and eager to throw herself into everything on campus, including a fall sport. When we received the email about probable vaccination requirements for athletes, I literally watched my daughter shrivel up before my eyes. To the majority of San Mateo County, this new requirement would mean nothing because they are vaccinated. But to the handful of children and parents that are not willing to vaccinate yet, this is life-changing. 4 years ago, I received 2 vaccines in a row, a requirement to work at my other daughter's preschool. Within 2 weeks of those vaccines, I became unbelievably sick. I ran a fever for 14 days straight, had every body ache imaginable, sweats all day and night. I couldn't keep anything in my stomach, couldn't catch my breath. Went from 130 pounds to 117 pounds in 2 weeks, and it took me months to put that weight back on. I never tested positive for the flu and was told I would be hospitalized if my white blood cell count dropped anymore. It was eventually diagnosed by multiple doctors that this was a reaction from the vaccines. However, my side effects were still considered quote unquote mild in the medical world. So most doctors won't write an exemption for something like that. But for me, those side effects felt like death. Took me 6 months to fully recover from and put an unbelievable fear in me. I realize that COVID is out there and it is awful. But for me and my family, this vaccine is equally scary. It's scary because of what I went through, but it's also scary for many other reasons. The reality is the risks associated with it are still unknown. There is not one single woman in this world who has received the vaccine, gotten pregnant, and then given birth because enough time has not passed for a full pregnancy. No one has any idea if there could be side effects to pregnancies or fertility. However, it is proven that it can cause extremely heavy menstrual cycles. This seriously concerns me for my daughter who wants to eventually have her own family. What bothers me is the rationale behind this policy. It states that unvaccinated students and their need to quarantine has caused disruption and loss of experiences for many students and their teams. So does this mean that permanently losing that unvaccinated student from the team won't have any impact? I beg to differ. It will absolutely affect the teams. And for that athlete that now has to go home after school instead of to practice, all because they have a personal reason why they haven't chosen to vaccinate yet. There are kids from broken families like my child, kids who rely on sports to fill the countless voids of society. These kids were already pulled out of sports once. How are they going to mentally handle it a second time? Except this time, there is no end in sight. This is the very thing that leads a teenager to use drugs, hang out with the wrong crowds, become depressed, and worse.
Wrap up, please. You're over time.
I'm sorry?
Would you're over your.
Okay. Bottom line is there's only one of these vaccines that's been approved, and that is the Pfizer vaccine. So if this really is going to go into effect, then only children that have been vaccinated by the Pfizer vaccine should be able to play. But like other people have been stating, it hasn't done anything. I know people with countless breakthrough cases, someone that died that was vaccinated and was literally the worst case that any hospital had seen. Thank you.
Thank you. Laurel Peters. Laurel.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much. I want to say, first of all, thank you to the board for serving. My grandpa served on the board. My mom and dad served on boards. My whole family has either taught history or coached or refereed or been a school nurse or a school psychologist. I feel like I just grew up in a world that gave to kids. And so I am happily a member of this community, of my city, and of this county. And I want to thank you for serving. And I feel a little bit bad that I'm not sitting there with you doing more like you do. Dr. Skelly, I also really appreciate you. It was sometime in March, early on, that you sent out a poem. Hope is the thing with feathers, and you talk about your mom, and I appreciate you so much for doing that. And that was a day that I was feeling hopeless, and that brought me hope. Unfortunately, Friday's email, it was like somebody took a rock and hit that bird of hope. I literally sunk into a mild state of depression, and I'm not one who gets depressed easily. I attack the day with faith and hope and a sense of expectancy of good. I want to speak, though, for unvaccinated students. I want to put a face with this. All children that are unvaccinated will be kicked out on the 20th. I don't know if this is true. I've heard from my daughter's friends. There's 11 unvaccinated football players on the BHS football team. I want to know who's going to be standing there when they hand in their helmet and their jersey and their pads. Other mothers have already said it, and I agree. We have a mental health issue to think about. We have depression. We have things that kill too, that aren't this virus. And I am sorry to hear it come out of the mouth of a leader that if I am not vaccinated, and I am, by the way, I work for the Burlingame School District, and if I am not vaccinated, the Delta vaccine is gonna get me. That is disturbing language. And that was meant to make people afraid. But there's plenty of information that we do need. It's compelling to consider what could be fearful about the vaccine. We just don't know. But I want to say, I think there is a way for us to say yes to the kids. We've gone to all this trouble and we've got them back and we have them with us and we're so excited, and they're going out for things, and coaches who have a real shepherd's heart, and drama leaders and teachers and heads of clubs. These people are passionate and they have their kids with them. And now we're going to send half of whatever percentage of them away over data. We don't know if it applies locally. I edited something for my boss at a principal of a local school today, and I confirmed the data. In Burlingame, 98.7% are vaccinated. What are we worried about if we trust the vaccine? The unvaccinated, that's their parents' choice, not theirs. They are just going to be kicked to the curb, and we're going to send them a message that I think we are going to regret. Thank you.
Darren Ginsel.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Darren Gensel. I am a Millbrae resident. I have a daughter who is a freshman at Mills and a son in the 7th grade at Taylor. I'm asking you not to approve the specific draft board policy regarding vaccinating students so that they can participate in extracurricular activities. According to the summary you submitted, only unvaccinated children would need to quarantine if they come within close contact with any person who has tested positive for COVID, therefore making them ineligible to participate during said quarantine. According to the CDC.gov, updated September 1st, 2021, they recommended vaccinated people isolate if they have tested positive or are experiencing COVID symptoms. They go on to say that preliminary evidence suggests that fully vaccinated people who do become infected with the Delta variant can spread the virus to others. We also have seen a rise in cases among vaccinated people across the country. According to the Orange County Register dated September 8th, 2021, between August 5th and September 2nd, cases involving children has risen to 750,000. The register goes on to say that despite the alarming rise, it still appears that severe illness due to COVID is uncommon among children. According to the CDC, since December 2019, over 5 million children have tested positive for COVID in the United States, with 335 of those resulting in death. In the last 2 months, West Virginia has seen a 26% increase of vaccinated people requiring hospitalization, with a 25% increase of those resulting in death. Lastly, according to SanMateoCountyHealth.org, data taken from November 22nd, 2020 until now show that COVID cases in children under 9 years of age is 3,697, with 0 deaths. During the same time frame, children 10 to 19 years of age had 5,597 total cases, resulting in 0 deaths. This is not just a problem of the unvaccinated. This affects everyone, and they should not be singled out, no matter what your vaccination status is. Everyone should follow the same quarantine protocols, especially since the vaccinated can spread COVID. I hope you take this into consideration and vote no on this draft.
Thank you. Janie Garcia.
Hi, I'm here as a parent and a teacher to also express my disapproval of this policy. This policy states that unvaccinated students have caused disruption and loss of experience for many students. You're now causing that same disruption for the unvaccinated students. The non-discrimination harassment policy that your district adopted in 2018 prohibits unlawful discrimination. Students who are excluded from participating due to vaccination status are being discriminated against, which is in clear violation of the above non-discrimination policy of 2018. It's unconstitutional that unvaccinated students will be penalized for not being vaccinated. In fact, vaccination is still a choice and not a law. To say that we need to take steps to further encourage people to get vaccinated by not allowing students to participate is absolutely filled with prejudice and discrimination. The COVID-19 vaccine has not received full approval from the FDA for children under 16. Therefore, this policy should not even be imposed upon students under the age of 16. This idea is absurd that the unvaccinated are a danger and should have privileges removed. If the vaccination truly protects people, then there should be no concern about contact with unvaccinated individuals. The potential lawsuits from these types of policies could present a tremendous strain on the school financial system. I appreciate your impartial consideration of this draft policy and encourage the board to vote against this. Additionally, I did not receive a phone call from Cappuccino or anyone about any vaccination events, as stated in your previous comments.
Thank you. Masha Merkulova.
Hello, thank you very much. My name is Masha Merkulova. I am a registered nurse of 17 years working in a local hospital on the peninsula. I'm a healthcare provider. I'm pro-vaccine. My children and I are fully vaccinated. I've advocated for vaccines my entire nursing career. And I'm here to tell you that I'm unequivocally opposed any and all mandates for students to get an experimental medical treatment just to be part of their school activities. Not only are these types of mandates unconstitutional, they violate citizens' basic human rights to medical freedom. And by the way, they violate HIPAA, the medical privacy. Here is why I am against it. For those who have vaccinated, congratulations. For those who have not, they have their reasons. One of the reasons is the CDC and the FDA have never given a report or a press briefing in all these months on the safety regarding any of the vaccines since the rollout. We don't know any long-term side effects of these shots. The adverse reactions and deaths caused by COVID vaccines have skyrocketed. Now, according to the VAERS, the CDC's own reporting system, which only shows 1 to 10% of all cases, there are already nearly 14,000 deaths from these shots. We stopped swine flu vaccine after just 25 deaths. There are 14,000 deaths. There's over 623,000 adverse reactions, 84,000 of which are being extremely serious and life-threatening. Now let's break it out by numbers. Age 0 to 17 range. We have 21 deaths, 200 life-threatening reactions, and 71 permanent disabilities. In the age of 18 to 29, due to these COVID shots, we have 108 deaths, 726 life-threatening reactions, 919 permanent disabilities, and so on. Natural immunity is not being considered at all. A study out of Israel, where 80% of the population is fully vaccinated, shows that people who have been fully vaccinated with 2, sometimes 3 shots, have 250 times the viral load in their nostrils as those with the natural immunity. Finally, I'd like to bring attention to you this fact. Despite of a very slick PR campaign and mass media misinformation, none of the currently available vaccines that are stocked in CVS's and Safeways and doctors' offices, none of them are actually FDA approved. Don't believe me, do your own due diligence, go on the CDC website, go on Pfizer website, and that when you will understand that the federal government, not the manufacturers, not the federal government, are going to be held liable for any of those adverse reactions and God forbid deaths. Who is going to be held liable? You who are sitting pretty and mandating these experimental chemical shots to our children.
Would you wrap up?
If we have 18 positive cases, how many of them are actually sick? How many of them are actually sick?
You're over time, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Everybody's over time, ma'am.
Yeah, you're over.
This is the
I
least
know, but we
I'll
should be
abdicate my 2
respectful.
minutes to Matt.
Yeah.
So this is Elise Dixon. I'm a caller on the somewhere in the queue. I will abdicate my time to Masha.
Okay.
I'm
sorry.
I'm sorry.
That's not the way we do things.
I could not pick up who was speaking. My name's Elise Dixon. I'll yield my 2 minutes to Masha Merkalova to allow her to finish. Okay, well, she's used up some of that time. Do you want to conclude? And we will, who was that? Elise Dixon.
Yeah, I have 10 seconds.
No, I will yield my time to Masha. She has my, whatever amount of my 2 minutes will be allowed. I will yield my time to her. Okay. You want to, Masha,
Yes, may I continue?
please.
Okay. What I'm asking you to do is to do your own due diligence and to understand that people have valid concerns. People already have brought up the fact that locally we have high vaccination rates. And again, how many kids have actually gotten sick? The gentleman previously have mentioned that there have been about 300 deaths of children from COVID. I would like to correct that. There has been zero deaths of purely COVID of pediatric patients, zero. The kids who have died have had other clinical conditions that were life-threatening. Those kids sadly would have died anyways. So I beg of you to please, if you don't consider children's health, consider your own liability, because each and every single one of you will be on the defendant page when things will start rolling out. This is your responsibility. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Maybelle Vygotsky?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I would like to ask you board members to vote against this policy simply because aside from what are the other parents have already said, I believe this policy will clearly show segregation for unvaccinated and vaccinated kids. They already suffered a lot. My son, 17-year-old, healthy, young, gets up at 5:30 in the morning to work out, makes his own breakfast, prepares his own food, takes his vitamins and minerals before he goes to school, work after school. He's very active. But last year I saw a decline in his active life. He was just in his room in pajamas all day. And so the following year, 2021, when we started getting back to kind of somewhat normalcy, I saw that again. He was about doing life outside. And Superintendent Skelly, on your last slide, on the first item, it was mentioned that this policy will drive more students to be vaccinated. I don't think it has to be said proudly, because you will drive students who up to this point remain to be unvaccinated to get the vaccine, just so you don't remove them from the extracurricular activities that they would like to participate in. That is so inhumane and unconstitutional. And lastly, as a parent, I do not agree for weekly COVID swab testing. This swab was coated and saturated with ethylene oxide is known to be human carcinogen. And my son, like I said, is healthy. We survived last year and this year, 9 months in this new year, without being sick. Thank God. And with this vaccine, I believe there is bigger agenda, because the county or other states are mandating it, trying to force us to give up our free will, the free will that my creator had given me. But you guys are trying to get it by mandating this. That is so not right. Like Masha said, do your diligence, because the responsibility will be on you. So as a parent, I join the rest of the parents here asking you to consider not implementing this policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, and Elise Dixon, I believe you ceded your time.
I did, thank you.
Thank you. Anne Marie Garcia.
Mr. Griffin, our next speaker, I'm having some trouble finding. I'm not sure if this individual is Anne Marie Garcia or Mary Richards, and I see a few names that are similar to both of those. So if you're out there and you are either Anne Marie or Mary, if you could send me an email to comments and let me know what screen name you're using, I will be able to promote you. Thank you.
In the meantime, LD, which I think is ELLE, second word DEE. Do you see an LD?
I just promoted her, Mr. Griffin. I'm sorry. She should be coming in any second now.
Okay.
So I see LD has declined to be promoted to panelist. If you would like to be promoted again, if you can send me an email to comments and we'll promote you. Mr. Griffin, there are a few that came in after the email that I sent to you. So we have Chris Wessling.
Okay, you're gonna have to tell me from here on. So Chris Wessling, you have 2 minutes. Good evening.
Thank you. There will never again be a day without COVID cases. The term that we're most familiar with when we talk about COVID is a pandemic, but the term I invite you to become familiar with is endemic. COVID is here to stay. There will be another variant. There will be another surge. I want to thank Superintendent Skelly for making the case so eloquently that the proposal before you should be rejected. 82% of the population of students self-reporting as being vaccinated. In the past, before this current crisis, 70% was traditionally held as herd immunity. He said that the 13% difference between the people that had COVID with the vaccine and had COVID without the vaccine was a drastic number. And I agree with that. If you look at the current numbers, it's John Hopkins data shows that in the last 28 days in California, we've had a 40% lower mortality rate to COVID than we did for the entire rest of the time. 13% is drastic. And right now, the absolute peak of the surge of the COVID driven by a Delta is about 33.4% of the peak that we had just this last January. It's amazing. 13% is drastic. Did you know that currently there are 46 people in ICU for COVID? And did you know that there's more than 1.5 times that number of beds still available? This also is down from the numbers that I remember, 80% from what we saw in the surge in January. Another thing, Masha meant, 2 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Chalkley? Who's up
I'm
next?
still, Mr. Griffin, I'm sorry, I'm still unable to find Anne Marie Garcia or Mary Richards, and I have not heard from them over comments. And then that would leave Christina Alvarez, who I've also been unable to find. And Terry Botari, which, oh, there's Terry. Terry, so maybe Terry should be up next.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for taking my call. I too am in strong objection to any vaccinations being required for extracurricular activities. I'm a resident of the San Mateo County. I live in San Mateo, and students should not have to apply for any exemptions, nor should they be required to be vaccinated by September 20th. I believe all schools, public, private, charter, whatever, as far as their in-school and outdoor activities, must not violate the Nuremberg Charter, which is the federal code that I'm just going to briefly cite right now. Section 21.5b or 50b. It talks about informed consent. It defines what does informed consent mean. It's afforded to all human beings and requires that the following rights not be infringed upon. Number one, we all have the right to refuse vaccination. Somebody else stated earlier, this is not a law, that vaccination, there's a lot that has to be researched as to what vaccination is. Is it safe for our bodies? Is it unsafe? It should be a choice. That is a right that is afforded to us. Number two, the right to confidentiality. This means one's vaccination data will not be shared without our consent. That's going on in classrooms all the time. Okay, that's a violation of HIPAA. Number three, the right to be informed of other alternatives to vaccination, like ivermectin, HCQ, just a few examples. Okay, so the COVID-19 vaccine is not safe. It is an injury-causing and death-causing gene-altering protocol. I would ask that the staff please use your resources, use your time to research and do your due diligence, get educated on the truth about the injuries and the deaths being caused by the COVID-19 vaccines. And I would offer a few resources that are advocating for truth, for life, freedom, and justice. Please look at the data from the America's Frontline Doctors, look at the National Vaccine Information Center, look at Millions Against Mandates and all the research they've done, look at Informed Consent Action Network, and look at Children's Health Defense. I'm not going to go into all of the data. There's been a lot of data that I agree with as far as there are children who are dying. There are children who are getting injured and dying because of these so-called vaccines. It's an atrocity. It's immoral. It's an illegal to mandate injury and death to our families and to our children. So do not imitate the bad decision made today to mandate vaccination the way Los Angeles Unified School District did. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Chalkley.
So I was able to find LD, so L can go ahead.
Good evening.
Hello, I am speaking tonight to voice my extreme opposition to the banning of the unvaccinated students from extracurricular activities. This is blatant discrimination that punishes students for family and personal health decisions. Putting the blame on unvaccinated students for disruptions to sports and other activities is manipulative, coercive, and downright shameful. I will not stand by and watch as you actively allow and engage in the mental and physical abuse of our students. What is the purpose of this? What are you doing? This has moved so far away from health and has moved into harassment, intimidation, and bullying. The policies in place and proposed policies are not guided by health and safety. We push fear and we shy away from the truth. Unvaccinated individuals have to quarantine for 10 days. All the vaccinated do not. I do not understand that policy at all. As many have already touched on, unvaccinated and vaccinated can both equally catch and transmit the virus. So I find that absolutely insane. I just think that this is pushing discriminatory policies and coercive mandates, and it will not be tolerated. So it's unacceptable to treat students differently from one another based on vaccination status when they are both healthy, showing no symptoms. I just don't agree with this. And I really hope that you guys will make the right decision today and not ban these students. I mean, it is a mental health issue. I know many students that are suffering big time, and this will just be one final blow. And I cry every night about this. You cannot do this. Do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Chalkley.
I promoted Christine Chambers, who was previously identified with a different last name, but she's been promoted now.
Good evening.
Hi. So I am one person in favor of your vaccine mandates. I had a lengthy presentation to give you, but it's too long for your time constraints. So I'm going to, try to summarize what I wanted to say. And first of all, these vaccines are safe. They're not poison. We've also mandated many other vaccines to attend school by the CDC suggested vaccines, polio, chickenpox, measles, pertussis. All of these vaccines is completely fine to mandate a vaccine. I don't understand why we are trying to cater to the relatively 15% of unvaccinated people, and they're considering this discrimination. It's like, no, we are trying to protect all of our students. We know that the vaccines do work. However, they don't prevent infection 100%. That means every time the vaccine or every time the virus is spread to another person, it has the chance to mutate, as I think Dr. Skelly had pointed out. These vaccines will, or these variations and mutations will eventually survive beyond the vaccines that we have. More and more people will die, more and more people will get sick. And why do we even want people to get sick? Even if they're going to be fine, even if they're going to recover, why do we want illness? It is our job as, well, I'm not part of the board, but it is the job of the school district and the schools to protect all of the children and their families for a safe education. I'm high risk, I'm fully vaccinated. I'm scared every time I send my daughter to school because I know there are anti-vaccination students on the campus at Aragon High School. They have expressed a complete disregard for anyone else's health. As my older daughter who graduated in 2020 explained to me, this one student said to her, "Oh, well, if someone gets sick from me, that's their problem." No, it's not. That's not the way we need to be. This country has done this too much. We need to start looking out for other people. That's why we have vaccines for so many other things. So I applaud your efforts to have a vaccine mandate, not only for extracurriculars, but for the entire student body and staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Chalkley.
So the only remaining speaker that came in before the item began is, as I'd mentioned, Anne Marie Garcia or Mary Richards, and I'm not able to find that person. Maybe if Ms. Aquino could just give it one look just to make sure I'm not missing that person, I would appreciate it. But I don't think we have this person with us tonight.
Yeah, apparently there's no success finding them.
Okay.
So like that ends to the best of my knowledge, that ends the public comment. And we will now have board questions, comments. Are the student board members still, okay, I see one student board member. Make sure they're up in the mix here so we can see their hands or whatever they're going to wave at me. So we have two hands up. I have no idea who started, but I will go left to right with Trustees Lee's Dwyer.
Thank you for the presentation. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the comments. I really appreciate it when people try to be as positive as possible. I see Mr. Sell sitting in this group here, and I was kind of thinking he would be saying something before us, but maybe he will be saying something later. I don't think the policy achieves a goal because the population that you're trying to affect is too small. And I just don't think we're going to achieve anything with it except a lot of discord between students, between families. And this is not the time for discord. this is a time everyone needs to push together and pull together. And I see this as disrupting that. And that troubles me. I went to a football game week before last, and I had sat on both sides because there were two of our schools, and that's what you do, you sit on both sides. And so I saw a lot of spectators. I also saw a game, and I saw how the students on the field interacted with each other and how the players, what they looked like, what they were doing, how close they were to each other as they played football. But I will tell you that from that experience, which was a few hours, because I stayed at the game, the student spectators' behavior and how they interacted was the football players could have been wearing masks as far as how the spectators were acting. They were hugging each other, they were kissing, they were just getting incredibly close to each other. There were no masks. I saw maybe 5 kids with masks out there, and a lot of families, okay, a lot of people, a lot of physical interaction going on, and it was a very well attended event. So there were people everywhere. So if I don't want to say punish the athletes, but if you take away the ability for a kid to play because he's not vaccinated, he can go sit in the stands then, not being vaccinated, and get exposed to more than he would be if he was on that team. And I've also been on the track when they're practicing football. And I'm using football because it's going on today. And, if you think about basketball and indoor sport, what is that going to be like when you put all the spectators inside and they're going to allegedly wear masks inside? I kind of say good luck with that, because at every chance someone gets to eat something, they're going to take the mask off. So, and that's an indoor space with, whatever ventilation issues we have. But watching the kids, watching the players, watching the practices, as I've been out there, we're not going to accomplish anything with this. And I don't see us accomplishing what you really want to accomplish. And I don't want one student to catch COVID. I don't want anything to happen to any of them. So I think what we need to focus on instead at this point in time is identifying Delta symptoms, identifying kids who are showing symptoms. And I say to all these parents who came tonight, all parents listening, if your child does not seem well, don't send them to school. Keep them home, because I know a lot of students want to go to school, so they'll bypass you in order to get there, because I had 5 teenagers. But don't send them in. But 2, if we can take their temperatures and whatever we can do to identify more students, to eliminate that small percentage that we have, which will increase the risk for many other students, then we should do that. As far as the testing is concerned, I think we should be doing it, should not be on the outside. And hopefully, I had testing at Kaiser and it wasn't such a big deal. So I'm hoping that the testing that we do is like that. It wasn't at all invasive. But I think we should test more and find different means to test and do what we can to keep all the students safe. But I cannot support this policy as it's written. Thank you.
Trustee Land.
Okay. Thank you. I'm just going to say I'm completely torn in some ways, because, talking about what Dr. Scully started with, which was we really tried to open up sports and extracurriculars. The first thing, we were one of the early districts who allowed clubs and on campus, because we knew the social importance to have that happen. And I'm very proud of that. And I'm very proud of our district and where we've gone. As it's gone on, though, we've had to put protocols in place. And on the other end is exactly what Craig Childress has brought up, which is we need to be safer and safer and have more protocols put in place so this goes away. And the more vaccine we have, the better off we're going to be. So, so I see the both sides, and it's what is the right thing to do. I think, Linda, you kind of hinted to that. What is the right thing? Is this the right policy for the times right now? Or is it just going to be a punishment for for students who really want to be a part of extracurricular activities? I think we can do this. I was on the county call for the school board, for the County School Boards Association. And in that, county council the lawyers talked about that extracurricular activities are a privilege, not a right. We're not forcing anybody to be a part of this. So we can do this. So addressing some of the concerns that were brought to our attention by some of the speakers, for the collective good, we can ask for vaccinations in this voluntary club activity, sports activities, if we wanted to. In fact, if we look at it from a school perspective in education, yes, there are some mandated vaccinations for lower grades and elementary students that, they would already mentioned, like mumps and measles and polio and chickenpox. So we can do that. The question is right now, is this the right time for a policy like this? And that's really the question that is like in my mind right now. What is the best for the students? I think we know what prevents infection: wearing masks, washing hands, being socially distanced, responsible outside. These are things that we know prevents COVID, and we need to enforce that. That is what we need to be mandating no matter what. Vaccinations help. It's important to get vaccinated. I know Peter's going to start talking about vaccinations and how critical it is, and he's absolutely 100% right. We also need to do things like testing, more testing. I don't think we're doing enough. I also think our district needs to look into pool testing, maybe even for sports. Pool testing can be something very important, because if we're pool testing before a game, then they can all participate. But if there's a positive, then we'll have to cancel the game because we don't want to infect the other team. I think other teams need to be doing pool testing as well, so that we know whether we can have a game or not have a game. These are things we need to look at, and these are policies we need to do for sports and other events. Yes, testing should be a part of any extracurricular activity. It just should be done. So if you're going to go to a dance, you got to get tested. That's something that we need to do. I've gone over to Hawaii, and the mandate to get tested was just incredible to get on a plane. And guess what? It works. We got to enjoy it. I'm not sure what the answer is, and I'm just going to keep listening to what everyone has to say before I figure out where I'm going to lean on. But as of right now, I don't know if this is the right choice. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to keep going left to right. Trustee Hanley.
Well, Greg's right. I believe that vaccines and vaccinations are a way out of this pandemic. It's a way to get our education system functioning at a maximum level. And I think we have to get more of our students vaccinated. Vaccinations have been mandated for public education for 70 years, maybe more than 70 years. I mean, when I was a little kid, I had to get vaccinated for polio, for whatever, diphtheria, for all of those kinds of diseases. When I was a little kid, we didn't have a measles vaccine, unfortunately, but whatever vaccines were available, I had to get them to go to school. This is not a new concept. I can hardly wait till we can mandate vaccines for all of our students, but this is not a mandate. This is a choice. People can choose not to get vaccinated and not to participate in extracurricular activities. But I hope that they will choose to get vaccinated and participate in extracurricular activities. And I think this is a step in the right direction to encourage them to do that. Nobody is dying from this vaccine. That's just not true. It's just not true. People are not dying from taking this vaccine. And this kind of misinformation and just outright lies about the vaccine and the effects of the vaccine, are crippling our society. It's crippling our economy. It's preventing us from moving on. I agree with the speaker that said this is going to be an endemic. COVID is never going to go away. We're never going to get rid of COVID. It's going to be around, and we have to live with it. But we live with it by vaccinating people to the maximum extent possible, so that society can go forward. So we've got to increase the number of people that get vaccinated, and we've got to take the steps necessary to do that. And this is a step in the right direction that is going to encourage more people to behave responsibly and do that. And as far as, you know, participation in athletics, I would support that the crowds at our basketball games or volleyball games show proof of vaccination or proof of a recent test to be able to enter those contests. That's what you're going to have to do to go to Sharks games and Warrior games. And I would support putting that kind of policy in place. You know, I think we need to do everything to protect ourselves and get ourselves back into a position where society functions at a more normal level, and we stop the spread and get ourselves back into a better position. But we need to get our society back functioning in a more normal manner. And right now we're suffering. Everybody is suffering under this, and I think vaccinations are the way to get out of it. We don't want to spend our lives wearing masks, spending our lives 6 feet apart from each other, you know, worrying about every time we go someplace that we have to get tested. I mean, I just went to Alaska. I got tested 3 days before I went. I got tested 2 hours before I got on the ship. You know, who wants to do that for the rest of my life? I don't want to do that for the rest of my life. I had to wear a mask on the ship for the entire 7 days I was on the ship. I don't want to do that. I want to get back to normal. And, you know, we need to take steps that allow us to get back to normal. And this is a step that moves us in that direction and encourages people to do the right thing. And so I'm going to support this policy change. And I think it's the right thing for the district. I think it's the right thing for students. It protects the other students. It protects our ability to run sports programs, not have our teams have to cancel games, not have other students infected, not have the staff infected, not have spectators potentially infected. I just think this is the right thing to do.
Thank you. Trustee Andrade Zuniga.
Go ahead and let Ms. Buss go first. I can go last, no problem.
Thank you. Okay, hi. Again, I just kind of want to offer my perspective as a student.
Please.
So again, I'm a junior at San Mateo High School. I got vaccinated as soon as I was allowed to, because when I got vaccinated, I was still 15 and it was still for 16 and over. So I got vaccinated as soon as I turned 16. And so just as a student, those like emails that come out, which like is like there's been a COVID case at your school or you are a close contact, that's just very anxiety inducing, just as like a student being at a school. And so, and then I also went to our back to school dance, which was super fun, but it's just like so scary knowing that there's just that risk of getting COVID and just like being sick. And so, and then not being able to go to school, like it's really hard to work from home now. I have like a lot of hard classes that is hard to handle from home. And so I don't really want to stay home. And it's just like, as a student, that's kind of my perspective on everything. I don't really have like a stand, but I just want to offer my perspective.
Thank you. Nice. Trustee Andrade Zuniga.
Thank you, Ms. Buss. I just want to clarify something also. During the public comment, when I was rushing people along, I really wanted people to get the chance to speak and not get cut off. But yeah, so that was the purpose of that. Second, so I am in agreement with Trustee Hanley and with what he said about the vaccines. We are responsible for every single body that comes into our district. every single student, and including the students that are vaccinated and unvaccinated. So we are trying to make sure that everyone is safe and is not going to get sick. I don't want to see even one case, like Trustee Dwyer said, one case is one case too much for me, and it's not okay that nobody's died. That is not a measure for me. I'm sorry. That's not okay. People need to be able to be well. I don't want to get sick, and I know that other students don't want to get sick, just like Miss Buss had said. Who wants to be ill? Second, we are proposing this this policy because we need to make sure that we are doing something to keep everybody safe, like Trustee Land was saying. We are responsible for this district, and if somebody does die, we will be responsible for that too. Like Trustee Hanley said, there is nobody that has died from these vaccines. Somebody else had said that people have died in the hospital after getting COVID because they had underlying conditions. That's not, and only because of that, that's not necessarily true either. So I would really also like for there to be some accurate information. I don't want there to be information that is just misinformed and not accurate. It's unfair and it's not right. I really would like, as a person with a disability and a person of color, stop using the words segregation, discrimination, lack of equity, inclusion, and all of that. That is not true. And this is not the same. That's not the same. We are trying to do what we can so everyone is able to be included. There is nothing about this that we are not saying, oh, because of X, Y, and Z, things that you can't control, you're not able to participate. People are being able to participate, but that is a choice. It is a choice to be vaccinated. And if anyone will be proposing any policies, that is what's going to happen. Right now with concerts, with airlines, with, sports games, people are required to be vaccinated or have a negative COVID case. So what about those? Those are policies implemented. That is not discrimination. That is saying we need to keep our public safe. And this is what we are asking for the public to do if they want to come into our establishment. These are our children. This is very important to me, and it's very, very pressing to me because these are children. These are our babies. And so I don't want any of our kids to be ill or to be sick, whatever. Also, the game that we had to postpone on Friday or cancel, I believe that we played against Half Moon Bay. Is that right? Am I correct?
Yes. Yes.
Half Moon Bay has a huge population of people who are extremely low income, who are farm workers that do not have access to medical care. So what would that do to that community if there was even one case? It's not right. I'm sorry, but I cannot sit back and feel good about that. The Delta variant is extremely contagious. Yes, our vaccines are not 100% safe. And we still have people that have been infected with a Delta variant even after being infected twice, being vaccinated twice. Why? Because like Ms. Chambers said, it is a mutation. And this is stuff that we learn in health class, how viruses are mutated. So I'm sorry, but I'm very upset because it is the fact that we don't all live in the same communities. I'm sorry. We don't all have the same resources. We don't all have the same families. Some of us live in a room that cannot quarantine if we're asked to. Some of us don't have access to healthcare at a drop of a hat like some of us do. So we are supposed to be a community. Being a community means looking out for every single person in our community. So I'm sorry, but I am really disappointed with what I heard. And I as far as the policy goes, because we're going to approve or disapprove the language in this policy, we need to maybe include some things, but I'm in favor of the policy because I don't want to see anybody sick. And I don't want to have any games canceled. Yes, it has been pressing. Both of my boys played sports all throughout their high school careers at the SMUHSD, both of them. And I saw my son the last year that he was here, that he graduated. He was in that class that didn't get to graduate on stage. Everything shut down. He was a football player, and I saw how much it affected him. I did. I'm right there with you. But if we had had something in place where they could play and they could participate, you better believe I would have been there to help him do that. So that is my stance, and yeah, thank you.
Okay, Trustee Land, you're apparently coming back for seconds.
I'm coming back for seconds.
Okay, I haven't had a first.
You should have a first.
But I want to call on, I don't even know what to call Steve Sell. Well, he's Coach Sell, but he's also Exalted Leader Sell. So I really would like to have another perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. I'll be honest, I do not envy your position at all as a board. You are literally between a rock and a hard place. And I'll be honest with you, when I heard of this proposal, I was in favor of it. I thought it was a good idea. And for all the reasons that Mr. Hanley discussed, I know we have vaccinations are required. They've been required for a long time. We are in a war against an unrelenting opponent with the virus. And we should use every resource we can, every bit of leverage we can to fight it. But the more I listen to not only my colleagues, but to even speakers this evening, I am no closer to knowing what the answer is. I am as eager as anybody to have this done. I want these 9th graders and 10th graders to graduate on stage without masks. I want them to be able to go to class without masks. I want them to go to proms without masks. And I was on board 100% with using the co-curricular activities as that bit of leverage to have that done. But the more I listened, I became no closer to knowing what the answer is. And I will readily admit that I do not know what the answer is to getting more kids vaccinated, especially the kids that need to be vaccinated. What I think I can safely say after listening tonight is that this mandate, while very, very well intended, is not the answer. It's not the answer right now. And I'm not smart enough to know what the exact answer is, but after hearing everybody, I truly don't think this is the answer right now. And I will leave it at that, because anything else I say would be pure conjecture. And I can just safely say that we need to get there. We need to get more families vaccinated, and we need to encourage them every which way we can. But I don't think this is the right way right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you have a quick question, or
no? You go first.
Okay. Well, we really haven't talked about the legal issues, and I'm curious to what extent we ran this by an attorney in terms of legalities, HIPAA, which I know is a big thing with everybody. I was not familiar with the Nuremberg Charter and the issue of informed consent. And I am curious what kind of due diligence we've done from a legal perspective.
Yeah, I mean, the case law, and we in our conversations with Claire Cunningham, County Counsel, I mean, this is perfectly legal. I mean, the extracurricular activities are not part of FAPE. Students, it's a privilege, not a right. The Nuremberg case, we're not, we are not compelling anybody to get vaccinated. We're saying it's a condition upon which you do certain things. So I don't quite understand that connection. we're not forcing anybody to get a vaccine.
Okay, and then the next thing, and this brings up a really good point, because policies, and this would be a board policy. I think what's the other, you have a policy, and what is it? A
Administrative regs.
Administrative reg. We don't have an administrative reg, and this thing is going to go into place very quickly. And I could see where we could violate HIPAA, even though the policy might be legal as it's written. I could see some of our actions and the process could violate a law, because we haven't,
No, HIPAA applies to doctors, Bob, not to us, not to employers. HIPAA applies to physicians disclosing medical information. It doesn't apply to employers.
Yeah, we're asking for proof of something.
Okay.
That's different.
Okay.
That it applies to doctors disclosing medical information,
Okay, well,
not to employers.
And it can extend to us sharing information about vaccinations. That's part of what it might apply to us.
Well, see, and I have to sign a lot of documents because I deal with medical providers about handling of HIPAA information. So I'm not an expert. I don't profess to be a attorney, nor do I play one on TV or any of these other things. So I have to ask these things because we are rushing into this, and this is like the field trip that's happening tomorrow that we're approving tonight. And so the other thing I think, and I wrote down, will it make a difference? And after I heard the superintendent's report about the outreach efforts and the disappointment in the responses, that was kind of disheartening, that we're going out there and we think it's just, they don't know about it, and they don't, if they knew, they would get it. And if we just offered it and we'll throw in a free cinnamon roll, well, they'll come get it, those kind of things. And, and they're still not turning out. I'm not sure if we adopt it, I'm not sure that it's going to be the silver bullet that we think it's going to be. I think it's going to be maybe incremental, like everything else. I do believe the one gentleman who commented on it, that the Delta variant or whatever will become endemic, and we'll have to learn to live with it, I think is probably true. And I'm not sure. And I say, is it legal? Apparently it's going to be legal. And is it going to be beneficial? I'm not sure how beneficial this policy is for, the effort versus the benefit. Now, we think we all agree that the vaccine, we're encouraging vaccinations and amongst everybody. And I think that's probably good. That's good for everybody. I think the thing that we probably could do more is and somebody made a comment about identifying symptoms and putting more effort into that, to quarantine, to do, and do testing, to identify the symptoms, do more educational outreach. I think that will probably do as much good as a mandate here in terms of the actual impact. So how many athletes do we have that would not, let me cross off athletes? How many people under 16 could or would this impact?
Under 16.
Because is that?
I need some help on
Well, is that they cannot,
because that would be freshman teams
play anything,
teams,
any activity,
clubs.
Yeah,
it could vary because it would involve mostly the freshmen.
But they're more than 12.
Yes.
Is that Is that the
12? It's 12. Yeah, because I have students in middle school who have taken the shot.
Okay.
I have 80% of my students who
Right.
took the vaccination.
Well,
Yeah, I don't, so that's okay then.
Yeah. So anybody in
it's
high school
12
can
today.
take the shot. It can take the vaccination.
Okay. I don't need that information. So I really, I thought it was a good deal, you know, at first blush, and I see it's probably far more complicated, you know, and the benefits are probably not nearly as overwhelming as you would think they would be just by doing that. So Trustee Land, you have.
Actually, I just want to thank my fellow trustees. I mean, Lehia, Peter, Linda, and you too. I think I've come to a conclusion. I think for me, it is about the collective good and really helping and taking care of our students. And in this way, I think it's important to have the vaccination for all our students, and how can we encourage that in different ways. I think, Bob, you're right about rushing things. I think we have to kind of slow down in a way, because that September 20th deadline is a little too soon. And this is why I feel that way. Listening to this presentation on Dr. Scully, I really appreciate the amount of work put into the presentation and taking some of the facts. Looking at our students and our student athletes and the ones who would not be vaccinated, if you look at the percentages, it's people of color. And I'm concerned that we need to get them vaccinated. I mean, talking what Lehia is talking about, we have to do it. And how can we have that happen? I think we need to be a little slower and more methodical. If we pass this as a policy, we need to give opportunities to give vaccinations again. I think we don't have a very adequate answer on how we can provide it to students who are struggling, because their families may not have the opportunity and may not know what to do and know how to do it. So we need to have it readily available. If we can't do that, that's where I'm saying we have to slow down. I think the policy, so overall my philosophy is right now, we should pass the policy, or at least we should consider passing the policy at its second review, and really looking at the dates, really provide opportunities for athletes who want to stay in sports, be vaccinated, and give them opportunities to be vaccinated. I think that is the answer to help improve the statistics that we were just looking at on the slides earlier for the ones who need it the most, because they're the ones, those athletes or those percentages of people of color or students of color, they're the ones who are going to need it, and we need to give opportunities we're not. I mean, yes, we've given certain opportunities, and I applaud that, the Stanford ban, but we need to do more. I don't think we're doing enough. So I'd like to see this policy in place, but I'd also like to see us extend and come up with opportunities. So I'd like to see it revisited at some point, but I'm all for it. Thank you.
Trustees Lees, Dwyer, then Trustee Hanley.
And Miss.
I unmuted. Okay, can you hear me? Okay. I kind of see how the wind is blowing here. First, I want to say, if you're going to do this, I would make October 1st the date, not September 20th, because there's just not enough time. You got to give people a chance, and you have to get people used to the idea. And the 20th is too much of a rush. I don't think that's fair. Okay, I don't think this policy is fair. And you know, if we had 900 people in the stands at that game I went to, and there are 40 kids on the field, 8 of those kids on the field could lose their place. They could be gone. Turn in your stuff. While the 900 people in the stands sitting really close together with no masks on for more than 15 minutes in very close proximity, talking, touching, whatever, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to change. I understand why you selected this population, because you can, but I think we're not paying attention to the rest of it. I think the problem is not so much with the athletes and the extracurricular kids. It's we have to address all those in the stands, all the spectators. And if you saw what I saw, maybe you feel differently about that. But I believe that this is the wrong group to select, and to choose them because you can feels wrong to me. I definitely agree with Mr. Land and Ms. Zuniga that we need to be out there testing, offering shots, doing whatever we can to identify anyone who could have it early, getting them off campus and the help they need, getting vaccinations to absolutely everyone who'll take it. and doing everything we can to prevent the spread or coming onto our campuses. So anyway, thank you.
Trustee Hanley.
I'm fine with delaying the date. I think Greg makes a valid point there that September 20th is a pretty quick implementation date, and October 1st would be acceptable to me. I think as far as fans in the stands, Linda, I think that when you're outside, admittedly, if you're kissing someone, that's a problem. But if you're just outside, the chances of getting infected, even if you're close to somebody, is pretty low. If you're inside, that's a different issue. But if you're outside, the chances of being infected, even if you're close, is pretty low. But I think, even if this is an incremental move, I still would support it. And because I think, we need to take steps that move us in a positive direction, and this moves us in a positive direction. And so I would support it, and I would support moving the date. The other point I want to make is that the county of San Mateo is very vigorous in supporting providing vaccinations, and Lehia mentioned, they do have a mobile. They have a mobile unit that literally will come to your house. If you can't, for some reason, get out to a vaccination center or a vaccination facility, they will come and vaccinate you. And they have made extraordinary efforts to go into low-income neighborhoods and high minority areas and set up neighborhood vaccination centers. And to my knowledge, they are still doing that in a very active way, and are very interested in continuing to do that. And I think if we work with them, and there are neighborhoods in our district where there are low vaccination rates, I think we could work with the county to bring them into those neighborhoods. Because I've been on enough conference calls with Mike Callaghy and the county health people. They're very open to that. I don't think access in San Mateo County is an issue. I just really don't. I think the county will make sure that you get access to vaccines. Once you say, I want to be vaccinated, we'll get you vaccinated somehow. I just think that's the reality in San Mateo County.
Trustee Andrade Zuniga.
Sorry, it was actually a mistake. Then I couldn't unmute. But I guess while I'm here, yeah, I would not be opposed to change a little bit of the language of the policy. But I'm gonna say it again, I just really, we have to do something, we can't just like keep moving the way we are, because clearly there, we need some sort of change. So I don't know, I guess my question is how long would it take to get something else written out? Can we propose it at the next meeting, or what is the process now?
Could we have the attorneys maybe look at the language, kind of going to what Bob was talking about, just to make sure we're okay with it? And it's.
I mean, there's no question about the legality of this.
Okay,
That's
we
not-
heard it here first.
Okay.
So I think the question you have is,
Timing.
do you want to do it? And it sounds like you have consensus. I frankly would recommend October 2nd because it's a Saturday, you know, and then, you know, you've given players a chance to be on teams and make a decision based on, you know, that experience. Same thing with other folks. And then, you know, it's closer to when plays will be done. You're right, the 20th is soon. It's your board policy, right? I mean, my job.
I will make a motion that we adopt the policy amending the effective date to October 2nd.
Second.
Yeah, we got a motion and a second, and I think we still got discussion while people.
It can still be discussed.
Okay.
It can still be discussed.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's going to be discussed in terms of normally, would we not bring an administrative reg, or will this not have an administrative reg?
I mean, I don't think that, I mean, we can go back and take a look. You know, if I'm wrong about the legal, as you know, I'm not an attorney. I will ask them to come back on that. You know, I could bring back something on the 23rd to discuss this further. I think it's important. We spent a lot of time on this. If you don't want to do it, or you,
no, I mean,
I'd rather sort of have some sort of a vote tonight so we can, you know, we can start planning. This is a consequential decision for families to do as we go forward, and they need some direction from the board.
Well, one of the things, sorry, Dr. Skelly, one of the things that is definitely not equitable was that it wasn't in Spanish. And so for our families that weren't able to read the policy beforehand, I'd like to at least, you know, allow them that chance to read it and understand what, you know, what we're saying. So I know that, you know, you're proposing a vote today, but I don't know. I guess we can we just give it a you know, give people a chance to also read it, because there were not people, you know, able to give public comment that, you know, speak another language.
I think for me, one of the, I hear what Likia is saying, but also one of the things that really hinging for me is the changing of the date is to offer opportunities to give vaccinations, because then it's like, hey, I've got a decision to make. I want to be on the team. I want to go to the dance. I'm willing to get that shot. Where do I go? And if we could provide information for students, you can go here. This is where you call, and outreach, coaches outreaching, you know, to their teams to be, and, you know, actors as well for the performances. I think that's an important component that we have to take into consideration.
Coach Seld, is your hand up for a fresh comment?
I think so.
Yes, it is. So, you guys, I've been on CCS Board of Managers for about 15 years and been a part of a lot of votes like this. And there's a term that's been thrown around when there's a bylaw being proposed that I found to be useful is, you know, there's some proposals that are intended to catch the sharks, but inadvertently they end up catching the minnows and smaller fish. And I don't mean to say that the players or the athletes or the football players specifically are the sharks, and the heads of student government, the heads of the film club, the other co-curricular activities that we don't think about are the minnows or smaller fish. But the more and more this is discussed, this sounds very much like a bylaw proposal that's intended for the sharks, that is going to catch a lot of smaller fish in the net. And there's going to be some unintended consequences. I would just, as I said before, at the beginning of the week and almost at the beginning of the meeting, I was in favor of this. But the more I listen, I would certainly pump the brakes on it. And That's just my opinion. I just wanted to share that.
You know, one thing, and I'm going to go back to the statistics. We didn't really talk about the statistics by ethnicity. I want to point out a comment. If you look at, I think it's the BIPOC is the term of the people that have really low vaccination percentages. And these are people I talk to. These are my buddies, my homies, or whatever. You know, when you talk to them, there is a deep-seated distrust of the system, period. They're not going to quote you. They're not going to quote you the number of people that got sick, the number of people that died. They're going to say, I don't trust the system. You know, the people lie to us. They've been lying to us for a long time. And I'm not sure that you're going to be able to successfully penetrate that group of people. It'll be interesting to see if we do make some inroads, because I know they put other stuff in their bodies that's not healthy, but they're not going to put that vaccine just because it's from the man.
Right.
So, I mean.
But that's a point of privilege, though, also. Some, you know, in terms of like understanding medical jargon, medical care, all that stuff, that's also a point of privilege. So if people aren't understanding, like Greg was saying, or sorry, Trustee Land, we should do a better job of educating people then on what, you know, what it is that, you know, that they need to do for their health. So I don't know. I just think that, I don't think that's completely true. Sorry.
Well, it's true in my family. I've talked to family members and people who had no basis and no interest in understanding anything I could talk to them about from a standpoint of encouraging them to get a vaccination. So that's my circumstance, but I will honor what other people's opinions are. So what is the current motion?
Peter made the motion. I made the second that we adopt the policy, but we changed the deadline to October 2nd.
Sorry, can I pump the brakes real quick?
Yep.
Can we ask the interpreter if he could ask, or if, I don't know if there's people in the, you know, that are getting interpretation, if they had anything to say before we do vote on it?
Mr. Montaldo, can you make an announcement? And then Ms. Chalkley, do you monitor, you see everybody, correct?
I was going to say, when is the next meeting? When's our next meeting?
Well, at this rate, we're still going to be here.
I hear you. No, seriously.
September 23rd.
Okay.
Mr. Griffin, to answer your question, I monitor the comments email, so I would see anything that came into comments. And I unfortunately can't see if folks are in the interpretation channel. I'm not able to see, you know, if folks are in the separate channel. I can't tell. I just see everyone.
So can we give ourselves kind of some breathing room, kind of talking to what Leahia is talking about? Usually what we do with policy and board policies is a first read and then a second read going through to approve it for a final take. Why can't we pass it to go to consent for the next one, and we can pull it if we have a problem or have it revised or changed for the next meeting? I mean, that's normal policy, isn't it? That we usually.
That is the current policy. So
can we say yes, go through it, maybe take another look at it, you know, and then bring it to the 23rd for final approval?
Okay.
But then we let people know that this is probably most likely going to be the policy that we're passing, because we already put it through a first read and we already approved it, or at least 3 of us are, you know, depending on the vote right now.
Well, you know, we've heard as the wind blows, and if you're going to do something, why don't you get around to doing it? And we've heard various, and I'm seeing all kind of body language on the screens.
So, I mean, I don't know what everybody else thinks, but again, listening to what Leahia is talking about, getting it out, saying, and obviously with everybody on here, and I saw News Channel, hey, we believe in this, we want to do this, we think it's right for our kids, or at least some of us feel that way. We want to put it through as a read. Administration should get out information. So Dr. Skelly, if we can get it out to people that, hey, this is what's going to happen, see the reaction of students, see if we can get people to start vaccinating and get vaccinated. And that's a start. I hear what, and maybe it's not just athletes, maybe it's clubs, maybe it's the student government, maybe it's others. So now we'll get some reactions and figure it out. I think it gives us some breathing room. That's what I think.
Okay, I'm gonna call for we have trustees, Lee's Dwyer.
Jeez.
I think we should give people more opportunity.
Peter, you were
What's
lying.
wrong? Did you not hear me?
Now I can after you.
What did I do?
Nothing.
I kind of missed it. Okay. I think we should give more people the opportunity to know that this is coming.
Yeah.
And it's it's going to affect a lot of a population of children, young students, and I think that everyone should have the opportunity to know that it's coming. That's what you intend to do.
So are you saying that the deferral, the proposed implementation timeframe is not adequate?
I'm saying that you're talking about putting it, not voting on it tonight and putting it on the consent agenda for the next meeting and then voting on it then, because I will pull it off for a vote. And so that more people can have an opportunity to weigh in, particularly people who are not English speaking or English reading, so that they can have the opportunity, because I believe that parents of a number of our athletes may fall into that category, and they certainly should have something to say to us too. We should listen to more people.
Okay. So are we voting? Because it normally, when it goes to consent, there's no vote on it.
Right. And what she's saying, what Linda's saying is she's going to pull it and then we vote for it. And it's, let's be obvious. There's three of us who are saying we're going to go through with it. Whether we say it now or we say it next week is not going to change much. So it's, 3 to whatever,
It will give other people.
It'll give them, and Linda's saying it's going to give an opportunity, and I believe too. Yeah, it'll give them an opportunity to know it's coming, and we can have some feedback and implementation, and probably Dr. Skelly and the principals will be able to say, hey, yeah, we're going to go through with this, but we've found some glitches or problems, or this is what's come up as a result of us wanting to go through with this. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, you're counting the votes, even though.
Sorry, I guess I am.
Yeah.
I'm reading the tea leaves.
Okay,
I don't know,
well,
it's predictable, but.
So it's coming back at the meeting of the 23rd.
Okay, I just want the board to be clear with staff so we can.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm trying. I mean, even though we have the motion and the second, what we're saying now is it would be voted on. It won't be voted on tonight.
Well, okay, let me just put it this way, using Robert Rules of Order. Point of order.
Mm-hmm.
Don't we, if a board policy usually goes with a discussion like this,
mm-hmm.
we then put it on the consent agenda for the next meeting. If people don't like it, we take it off and we vote. That's what happens. So right now, sounding like just looking at the tea leaves and the board members, there's a vote to put it on to consent for next time. We can do that. And then
there's a consensus.
Right, there's a consensus, exactly.
So let me see if I can help us move forward a little. Greg is right that typically on a policy with this magnitude, you would have a discussion one night and action the next. So certainly we've had discussion tonight. And I will say that we did notify families. We sent a letter to everybody in English and Spanish that this was on the agenda, that this was going to be discussed. And so we did that outreach. We've heard a lot. I think we know more than we did before. I don't think you should. I mean, the meeting on the 23rd will have these speakers plus a lot of other speakers. And it will be a long meeting, and it'll be a late night. That said, that you shouldn't put this on consent, because you'll send a message.
I agree.
To the community that we're not.
I agree.
It's a consequential decision. I think if I am an athlete, I will start thinking, well, what should I do? Which is probably a good thing.
Right.
If I want to play, and so the board is going to consider this, you may want to get your vaccine now. That's probably a good thing too. There are other districts that are making lots of moves around mandating that we can watch. This will be an issue that's brought up. So my recommendation is that rather than get positional tonight, more than you have, take a vote and then people have to change. That's always hard. That we just table it, we bring it back next time. We try not to go over this. And, if you pass it, you give students, then I wouldn't do it October 2nd, I would do it October 16th at least, if you look at this. So we'll write this up for October 16th. That feels like more the message. That would be a change. Are there any other changes in the actual language here? It's pretty, to me at least, it's pretty cut and dried. We can have some conversations with the coaches, so you'll have some sort of sense on what exactly the numbers are of the fall coaches. And then we'll also know exactly how many athletes are affected, because we can cross-check who's been vaccinated with who's on teams, because we haven't.
Kevin, it affects school newspapers too, right?
Right.
And all
well,
the
no, it doesn't
fish.
affect school newspapers, because that's a
class, a credit
That's
class?
a journal.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's the journalism.
That's
okay,
a curricular class.
Every student who belongs to a club that is not, they're not graded for, would be impacted by this policy. And not one of those students appeared here tonight. So I think more the reason that we wait till the 23rd.
So
and I know it's going to be a long meeting.
So the only thing I
That's
would
our
say
job.
about that,
And it's my birthday, but I'll sacrifice.
so the other part about that is that the way the policy is written, if it takes place outside of the school day, so clubs that are, sort of during lunch or, reasonably around the school day, those would not be considered extracurriculars the way we envision this policy.
Okay. Does it say that in the policy? They're dividing them into off
Yeah,
during
it's
school?
in there.
That's crazy. I mean, I'm sorry, but that just seems sort of, we're splitting hairs here. Oh, we're gonna, all the clubs are gonna go inside at lunch. So, extracurricular, so they don't have to be part of the policy. I mean, this has got to get cleaned up. Okay. Sorry, Bob.
Okay, so are we going to withdraw this motion? Are we going to leave the motion stand as is?
I don't know if I made the motion or I seconded it. Peter, did you make the motion or did I?
I think I made the motion.
All right.
What if I move to table it?
Well, I withdraw my second. How's that?
I'll withdraw the motion.
There you go.
Okay, we can barely wait for the 23rd. And if we keep this up, we'll still be here on the 23rd. So I certainly thank everybody for their spirited participation and input. It's an important issue. I mean, this is the kind of issue that it's either going to bring us together or drive us farther apart.
Yeah.
And I think, we're trying to deliberate it and do the best we can. Okay, well,
Trustee Griffin, I think just remembering like the essence of everything was that we love our students, period. I think that's where all this passion comes from.
And that's not a bad thing. Not at all.
Okay, well, we're moving on to an item, and if we keep this up, we'll need a break. L2, public hearing regarding composition of trustee areas prior to drawing of maps. Is there a presentation?
Well, you have some material here. Given the hour, we've got Mr. Barry Smith and Mr. Johnson back. Really, tonight is an opportunity. You've seen much of this has been in the other presentation. We have presentation materials here. My sense is that one of the pieces that the board was interested in was slide with attendance zones and maps. But I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Barry Jones and our demographer here to take us through this. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Superintendent Skelly, members of the board. So we'll be as brief as we can. Dr. Douglas Johnson will go over this presentation. We will, like last meeting, go through a public hearing, and then afterward we'll move on to the discussion on the criteria resolution. So Doug, whenever you're ready, please take it away.
Sure. Thank you. Members of the board, it's a pleasure to be with you again. Much of the material is repeated. That's actually by design within the statute. They do ask us to do 2 informational and information gathering hearings. But as was mentioned, we did add in the slide showing maps of the attendance zones and the cities into this. So there is one piece, and I'll spend pretty good time on that. So with that, I'll jump in. Next slide, please. So when we're drawing the trustee areas, there are really 2 sets of rules. The first on the left is the federal laws. These are requirements. We have to have almost precisely equal population in each trustee area. There's a couple of percentage, give or take, to keep a community together and things like that, but it's a very strict rule. We also have to be sure we comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act, which has lots of elements to it, but primarily the focus is if a neighborhood is made up particularly of a protected class. So that's the term used in the law. It really refers to Latinos, African Americans, Asian Americans, or Native Americans. If a neighborhood is made up particularly of any one of those groups or of a combination of those groups, we can't divide that neighborhood in a way that dilutes their voting strength. We need to work extra hard to keep that neighborhood together. And then the third federal requirement is no racial gerrymandering. So you can actually go too far, and the law says if so obviously race can be a consideration. It has to be to make sure you're complying with Federal Voting Rights Act, but it cannot be the predominant consideration. That's the term that the Supreme Court uses, is predominant. So for example, when I talked about the Federal Voting Rights Act, I talked about neighborhoods that are made up of the protected class. So their neighborhoods would be the predominant factor, not race. So that's the balancing act that we have to work as we go through this process. So those are the requirements, and those are in federal law. Then we have what the courts have recognized as traditional redistricting principles. Think of these more as goals. Oh yeah, sorry, y'all froze there for a second, but I'm back. So, so these are the goals, and they are respecting communities of interest. So trying to keep neighborhoods and areas like that united, trying to keep trustee areas compact, contiguous, and using visible boundaries for the borders as much as possible. All 3 of those are for the voters. Trying to make it easy for voters to know which trustee area they're in, and ultimately which doors to knock on if they want to go knock on doors for a candidate they want to support in their trustee area. You can also consider respecting the voters' past choices, and sometimes referred to as continuity in office. So you can consider where the current board members are and attempt to keep each one in a separate seat. Again, this is a traditional principle. It's not a requirement. And the way we look at that is really the voters have selected the current board. It should be up to the voters to decide which current board member has earned re-election. So if each board member is in a separate seat, then they can each run, and the voters either re-elect them or not. If 2 board members end up in one seat, well, then it doesn't matter if the voters wanted to re-elect both of them and think they both deserve it. The voters can't, just because of where the line fell. So that's one consideration you can consider. You can also look at planned future growth. And then down the line, when you're redistricting, this doesn't really apply in districting, but when you're redistricting, you can also look to minimize how many voters shift from one election year to another. So if someone is expecting to vote in 2022, you want to try not to move them into a 2024 seat and delay their ability to vote. And when you're redistricting, you can also look to try to preserve the core of the existing trustee areas, since those are areas that the voters have been organizing in. But again, without trustee areas, that doesn't really kick in this time around. So those are our requirements and our kind of traditional principles and possible goals. So the next slide, please. When we're talking about communities of interest, the first ones that come up are generally neighborhoods. So we need to know how do people identify their neighborhood? And there's no right or wrong answer here. Ultimately, the definition of a neighborhood is whatever the people who live there define as their neighborhood. In particular, though, we want to know how do they define it, what ties them together, and what are the geographic boundaries of that neighborhood. Obviously, we can't keep it together in the map unless we know what area we need to keep together. There can be lots of input. At the last meeting, we talked about attendance zones, we talked about cities. And if there's a lack of public input on these issues, we can also look at planning records and zonings and specific plans and developments and things like that, administrative records that can help define those. The next slide, please. Related to neighborhoods is very similar to neighborhoods is the idea of communities of interest. There isn't one more question though I do want to touch on, which is when you're talking about a neighborhood of community of interest, does that area benefit from being kept all in one trustee area? Or in fact, do some communities of interest in neighborhoods benefit from being divided, from having multiple representatives? As somewhat was discussed before at the last meeting, one issue that about 2/3 of our school district clients consider is if the trustee area is tied directly to the school attendance zone, might a future trustee just care about that one school? So there is often in school district trustee areas an effort to actually spread the trustee areas among multiple attendance zones so that each school has more than one representative and each trustee represents more than one school. In that case, that would be a case where the community of interest would not benefit from being included in a single trustee area for the purposes of its fair representation. You go to the next slide, please. This is the new slide. So this is what the city, some discussion was about last time about wanting to see maps of the cities and the attendance zones in the school district. I do want to emphasize, just in case anyone's new to this topic, we're only talking about trustee election areas. So even when we talk about how does a trustee or election area relate to a school attendance zone, no attendance zone lines are moving. So no student's going to change schools because of this process. This is only to draw lines for election day. So you can see on the left, the attendance zones for the most part are kind of stacked on top of each other as you work away from the northwest to the southeast, with the obvious exception of San Mateo High School, which falls in the stack, but then wraps around the Foster City. Again, most of Foster City. And then you can see over on the right, the cities themselves. And I did run the population numbers just to emphasize California is doing something a little odd this year or unusual this year. California is going to take the census data and change it a little bit. So all of the state population counted in the state prison population counted in the census is going to be recounted back at their home addresses. So these numbers will change slightly as those state prisoners are taken out of the prison and counted back at home. But we don't expect there to be huge changes. But you can see we're looking with 5 trustee areas at just under 50,000 people, since the total population is 249,900. And again, that will go up a little bit as the population is added back in by the state. And then you can see the different attendance zones. Only San Mateo is over that 50,000 target number. But again, the other trustee areas could be kept within a single trustee. The other high school attendance zones could be kept within a single trustee area, or they could be, for policy reasons, divided so that each attendance zone has multiple representatives and no one starts to think this is my school. So that's up to you, which way you want to go. And again, there's no right or wrong choice in that approach. Similarly, over on the city side, so you've got San Mateo, very large population. And then the others are all smaller than the target population area. So that's the new slide. If we can go on the next slide. There will be, once we have the data, the official redistricting data and districting data, we will be putting up interactive maps where people can look at the maps I just showed you and zoom in. And as the draft maps are ready, we'll also be putting those up in this so that people can zoom in and out. And trust me, it's as easy to use as Google Maps. You can see over on the right-hand side, people just check which layers they want to see. You can actually check multiple draft maps. You can see how closely they relate and where they differ. And people can, in that search box in the top left, they can enter an address. And the map will zoom right in on their address. You can see the details of each map down to the individual house. Next slide. We'll also, again, as soon as we have that data from the state, we'll be putting up a tool called District R or Districtor. This is a really easy to use tool. You can put the various demographic maps up so you can see those protected classes, or you can also see income levels and education levels, all kinds of data going to this. And then it's a simple paintbrush and eraser tool. So you choose a paintbrush, you color in the area for that you want to be your neighborhood kept together, or you color in the whole district or trustee area that you want to propose. If you make a mistake, you switch to the eraser and erase it, and then you just choose the next color and move on. So people will have the opportunity to draw and submit both neighborhood maps and full trustee area maps. So next slide, please. All these tools and all this information will be going on the district's website. There is a page there that you can see CVRA, California Voting Rights Act, by trustee area elections. So you can just go to this page and get updates on what's happening next, any of the data, and links to all of the tools. Next slide. And then, as I just mentioned, the goal tonight is a public hearing. So we do welcome any questions and any input in terms of communities and neighborhoods that should be kept together, or areas that you think would benefit from actually having multiple representatives. And that's my presentation. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Does the board have any questions? Or the student board member? Okay, and I guess,
can I make a comment? The only comment I want to make is I really appreciate the slide where we're talking about the cities versus the schools and trying to mix that up a bit and making sure, like you said, that an area is not solely for one school. And I think that's going to be important in how we do this. So thank you for putting that in.
okay. At this point, we're supposed to have a public hearing. Is that correct? So
Mr. Griffin, I did promote Jennifer Blanco, who has requested to speak as part of the public hearing.
Okay, we will now open the public hearing and we will ask Jennifer Blanco to please step forward. Well, make comments, please.
3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Step forward. Well, I wish we were in person. Good evening, trustees, Superintendent Skelly, staff of San Mateo Union High School District, and all of us out here in the Zoom world. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak. So I have a couple questions on page, I'll start with page 5. With the presentation, it shows here that you already have the numbers for the, well, I know that in your resolution 2021-12 that was adopted on February 25th, it mentioned that due to the pandemic and the delay that the census data won't come out until September 30th. So, but you do put here, I don't know, you have some census population number here. So I'm not sure where you're getting those numbers from. And then I believe it's page 7 where the presenter spoke about. Here it says here also includes a mapping tool District R. It says you one of the check boxes also includes simple district mapping tool only available in English. And so I'm wondering why was it only offered in English? And just want to also commend and I appreciate Trustee Zunika Andrade that she's speaking on behalf of the underrepresented population of our district. And the other thing I wanted to say was I'm from San Bruno, and I'm not really sure here now. Maybe someone can answer this question, but I don't know when's the last time that San Bruno had some a trustee representing our area. And I'm actually applauding the district and moving. I know that this is a push because of Shankman and Hughes' letter written to the district that you all received back on the 25th of January. And I applaud your guys' efforts in your community outreach, but I'm just hoping that we will have someone that will be able to represent, and most likely I'm speaking on behalf of Cappuccino High School. And so I do know that, and I am aware that in order to draw these by trustee area elections, that we will need to combine certain areas of interest. And so I'm looking forward to how this, what the outcome and the results are moving forward, and looking forward to having someone represent San Bruno and Cappuccino. Thank you for the time.
Okay. Dr. Johnson, are you in a position? I know the census data I saw got released last month. Can you respond to that first question? And the second question too, matter of fact.
Let's see. Certainly, to clarify the first question, so this is the kind of odd situation California is in. So the 2020 official federal census data did come out April 12th. I'm sorry, August 12th.
Okay.
And so that's the numbers I'm showing you today. What's unusual is the federal census data is not the official redistricting data. So what's coming out, they actually are ahead of schedule. So now they think it'll be out September 20th, is California's official redistricting data. The only difference is that move of the state prison population. So the census counts the state prison population in the prisons. The state went out April 1st of 2020 and got all the prisoners' home addresses. So they're going to recount them back home. So it was a good spot, and that's the difference between the data I'm showing and what will be the final official data. Also, I'm glad you noted the thing about District R. I always wondered about only in English, and considered significant downside until just a couple weeks ago, and I have to update our slide template. Someone pointed out to me that someone that only speaks a language other than English actually sets their web browser to that language, and the web browser will translate. So District R is compatible with that feature. Okay. So I should have mentioned that. Thank you for bringing that up. So even though there's no like pull down to choose another language, it does work with the web browsers to translate automatically. So,
okay.
So that was
thank you.
Brand new info for me as well. So,
thank you.
Ms. Chalkley, are there any other people wanting to speak at the hearing?
No, sir. That's it.
Okay, we will close the public hearing, and we thank everybody. Now let's see. So now we're going to go on to the resolution and identifying the criteria for the demographer. So that's item L3. As a board, and I know they shared some items with us. Does the board have input they want to provide in terms of interest, areas of interest?
I think there's just so much to absorb right now, you know. It's like,
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Peter.
Yeah, I really don't. I think, you know, I think the best way to move forward is probably to let the specialists take a first crack at giving us some draft maps. I mean, clearly we have some areas in the district. I mean, I think of, you know, there's a large Asian community, for instance, in Foster City and in Millbrae, and there are several Latino populations in, you know, throughout the district, you know, in San Mateo and San Bruno, you know, just to name a couple. You know, but I, you know, I don't have the expertise to really define those in any particular specialized way. I'd like to see, people who do this for a living come back to us with some recommendations on, what the potential outcomes could look like, and give us some ideas, and we can, play around with them, or maybe even just accept them as you present them. I don't know what the maps could look like, but it seems to me that that's probably the best way to move forward. I don't have any more guidance than that to give you right now.
Any other comments?
Well said, Peter. I agree.
I have a question, and I'm not sure that for one item particular, the boundaries of may be adjusted to offset expected future population growth. How does that normally work? How far in the future do you try to look to consider those kind of factors?
It's fairly limited. So if you're going to say we're underpopulating this trustee area by 3 or 4% to offset future growth, it certainly needs to be approved and ideally would be under construction. It's certainly, the courts frown upon looking at, well, this proposal is going to the city or this proposal is going to the county. If it's not approved, it's too amorphous to take into consideration. But if you know that since April of 2020, there's 2,000 apartment buildings that went up in this area, then you can, or 2,000 apartment units that have gone up in this area, then you could underpopulate that by a couple of percent. It's something the courts have approved. It rarely is much of a factor, just because 3 or 4% is not much to offset. So it doesn't really impact where you really have growth. And that kind of differences tend to be more often driven by, let's stick to a major road, or let's not divide this neighborhood. So it's certainly something we could consider if there are those very fast growing areas relative to the rest of the district.
It just seems to be a lot of construction. I know there's some proposed, actually, I guess it's either going on or approved, like up in Millbrae. And I don't know how many units or how that's framed. And I know as I drive around, there just seems to be a lot of construction, mostly high density, multi-unit housing as opposed to single family housing. So I just was curious. Anybody have any other factors? I was just looking at Exhibit A when I came up with my question there. So
I do have a question. Sorry. Now that you brought up the construction at point, I wanted to know if there's any other communities that you've seen in your experience that are kind of like ours, because we do have a lot of proposed new housing in different cities. And then we also have just had a lot of construction and, things in the past, I guess, like 4 or 5 years now, maybe more. But with all of this new transit and things like that, are there any other communities that you've seen that are similar to this? And can you tell us what they've done, or, what we could do, because there is a lot of construction?
Yeah. So yes, I mean, we do a lot of work in Arizona as well. So we dealt with like City of Surprise, which in the 90s was doubling in population every 5 years. And we're working right now with Buckeye, which has grown by 50% every 5 years. So yeah, we've seen some really high growth rates. The key thing to consider is that, well, the only thing that would factor in here is one area that's growing faster than the other areas. So, I think up and down the peninsula, we're seeing a lot of infill construction, a lot of housing construction. If the different trustee areas are growing at the same rate, well, that's fine, or close to the same rate. Then we wouldn't try to, offset that because it's uniform. The only thing that this criterion is really referring to is if one area is growing particularly faster than the other areas, then we might underpopulate that area so that over time we'll stay more balanced. But that's the kind of narrow scenario this is looking at.
I guess for me, my question around this is what research do you do to figure that out? Do you use cities RENA, I forget what they call it, RENA numbers, or how do you figure out, those growth areas?
When it comes up, and it often is not a consideration, then yes, we are trying to get some list of developments and how many units are approved from city planning or county planning. You may have some of that depending on how recently you've done a attendance zone balancing survey. So sometimes schools have it, but usually that's coming from the cities. And usually it's something that's noticeable enough that everyone's aware of it. You've likely talked about its future impact on the schools and things like that, where there's a development that's growing abnormally faster compared to the rest of the school district.
Any other input on this? Okay, I think it was a good discussion. Do we need a motion at this time?
We need to pass the resolution.
Is there a motion to adopt the resolution 21-2205?
So I'll make the motion. So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we got a motion by Trustee Land, a second by Trustees Lees, Dwyer, Trustee Andrade, Zuniga. How do you vote?
I vote yes.
Trustee Land,
yes.
Trustee Lees, Dwyer,
Yes.
Trustee Hanley.
Yes.
I'll vote yes, and that resolution is adopted 5-0. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Good night, Jonathan Barry Smith.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night, Douglas Johnson.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Okay, we're getting there. Looks like we're going to N1, approval of personnel actions.
Yes, we have personnel actions and addendum with the recognition that was mentioned earlier of Dan Dobbins, who is retiring from the district after 38 years and 2 months on December 30th.
Is there a motion?
I move approval.
Second.
Second.
Okay, so we got Trustees Lees, Dwyer on the motion, and Trustee Land, I believe you got the second. Trustee Andrade Zuniga, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Trustee Land,
Yes.
Trustees Lees, Dwyer,
Yes.
Trustee Hanley.
Yes.
I'll vote yes, and so the personnel actions are passed 5-0. Into adoption of resolution for teachers assigned outside their authorized certificated field.
Yes, we have our one teacher at Burlingame who is English teacher teaching social studies. We bring this to the board each year.
I make a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Okay, so Trustee Land with the motion, Trustees Lees, Dwyer with the second. Trustee Andrade Zuniga, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Trustee Land,
Yes.
Trustee Lees, Dwyer,
Yes.
Trustee Hanley.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll vote yes, and that N2 will pass 5-0. N3.
This is the form to the schedule to pay people who work our athletic games. We I revised this to include a higher stipend for varsity volleyball games because they are 3 out of 5 instead of 2 out of 3. And then we also expanded the CCS coverage to all sports.
Are they vaccinated?
They will be.
Okay.
I have a question. Sorry.
Yes.
Our own employees who work like the football games, say Burlingame, for example, Cappuccino, the games. So how are they paid? They've worked all day and then they're going to stay and work a game. How are they paid?
And that's one reason you've seen this form over the years. We've consistently increased the pay to keep up with the pay of our employees and to also recruit for these different positions. They get paid on this schedule that you're passing today. We haven't changed that. We've only changed the volleyball tonight, but we've changed this many times over the recent past.
So if you work in the district and you worked all day, and then you're going to do security at the football game, you're going to make $50.
You're going to make $50 unless you for the one game at the weekday, and if it's a night game, it's 100, and if you work both, it's 200. There's a asterisk at the bottom.
Okay, so if it's a Friday night game, our employee who worked all day is going to make $100 if they work at night.
Yes, if they do just one game, yeah.
Okay, I'm just wondering because it seems like it can be a lot of hours.
It's usually about football game 2.5, 3, yeah.
Okay, and is that comparable to their usual rate?
Depends on what their what rate they're at, but I believe it's 33 to 43 for our campus supervisors. It's not only our campus supervisors who do this job. It could be anyone that feel that's appropriate and wants to do it. But it's close. It's probably under what they get paid in the day by a few dollars an hour.
And then the police people that kind of hang around, are they paid by the cities?
If we invite them, yes, they're paid. If they come on their own as part of their own dispatch, then no.
So if
we're not. I'm sorry.
Are we inviting them and paying them?
Yes, unless they're a part of our SRO contract or they're there on dispatch of their own accord because it's an event in the community, we pay for them to be there if we request.
Are they paid at the same security rate we pay our own employees?
No.
So then, if they're going to be paid for the security, then why do we have another teacher or another staff member doing it? Would that be like double paying?
So the police are limited to what they will get involved in. Our security, people that work our security will do, they could do anything from helping check in students and like now making sure they wear masks, sitting in the stands, making sure people behave themselves from what they're doing or what they're saying, helping at the snack, the lines for the snack shacks, those type of things. The police would be there to maintain order if there's some type of altercation, something that would be at a higher level that they would be involved in. Often just their presence helps, but in terms of what they would actually do, it would be those type of things.
Sounds like from what Linda's saying at the games, they need to do their job a little bit better.
Well,
the security?
Well, because the masking part anyway, if that's what they're helping enforce.
Right. Yes, that's part of what they're doing this year. And that's why we also have the volleyball change on this now, because we were having a hard time to recruit people into these jobs. And we definitely want to have security there to maintain behavior of students, like wearing masks and those type of things.
I mean, they're at the game I went to, which I've only been to one game, 2 of our schools. We were woefully, I want to say woefully, I believe we were understaffed with our own security people. I really do. We just didn't have, I saw like maybe one on each side at the most. There just weren't people there.
Yeah.
So Trustee Dwyer, do you think that then they should get paid more, like have better incentives to recruit people?
Mm-hmm.
We should incentivize our own staff. And there were 3 police officers out there eating and talking and, being police officers. But I would rather have less of them and more of our own people, because our own people are actually mingling and talking to students. And, I think that our own people can eliminate anything getting out of hand before it gets out of hand. And maybe Mr. Sell would want to weigh in on this because he has more experience with this than I do.
Thank you. So I think Kirk explained it well, is that there's 2 very different roles in that.
Mm-hmm.
school employees are there to enforce all the district policies, the CCS policies. And the police are there to maintain order if something were to go haywire.
Yeah.
So very different roles. An ongoing problem is just the general adult support for high school athletics, whether it's officials, coaches, and getting teachers to supervise. And Kirk is right. And with the volleyball, typically volleyball is not an area where we need a lot of supervision. But now during COVID, it's our first sport where there's not a limit on who can attend, but there is a hard and fast rule about wearing masks, whether you're vaccinated or not. And so, Linda, you are absolutely right in that. We maybe think about ways to incentivize our own staff members to stay there, especially as we approach basketball season.
Yes.
It's going to be harder, more challenging as the crowds tend to be a little bit larger to get people there to make sure they follow the mask mandates.
I think we really need to look at that, Kirk, because I felt like really there just weren't enough people at that game, our people. And even at the gate, I mean, they were working very hard at the gate, getting people in and making sure that they, had what they were supposed to have and all of that. The gate took a lot of focus because there were so many people. So the stands were not, there just weren't any people left for the stands.
Okay, so we've come a long way with these, as Steve knows, with these rates, and we're happy to bring this back to you. I mean, we just didn't make that change because, the rate was what the rate was. And but in terms of trying to find incentives for that, we're happy to bring this back to the next meeting.
I think, I think COVID has changed it. I mean, with COVID now, we need more people. We just do to keep people safe.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So I would,
back that, Linda. We would like to get this version passed so we could pay for the volleyball contests that are going on now, but we're certainly able to bring this back.
Could you bring it back soon so that we can up the staffing at football before we start basketball?
Oh, absolutely. And we can make it retroactive. I'll work with the ADs on it.
Then I move approval of this new request.
Okay, so we got trustees Lee, Dwyer with the motion, trustee Lamb with the second, trustee Andrade Zuniga. How do you vote?
I vote yes. With the intention to increase the incentives.
Okay, trustee Lamb.
Yes.
Trustee Lee, Dwyer.
Yes, and this accomplishes one of the things I was hoping to do with the whole COVID.
Trustee Hanley.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, and that will pass 5-0. In for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Sell.
Yep.
Thank you.
This one is a reduction of 2 positions at the adult school that they no longer need, and both are unfilled currently.
Okay,
so we're abolishing positions.
I make the motion to approve.
So is there a second?
Second.
Okay, trustee Lamb with the motion, trustee Hanley with the second, trustee Andrade Zuniga, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Trustee Land.
Yes.
Trustee Lee Dwyer.
Yes.
Trustee Hanley.
Yes.
I'll vote yes, and that'll pass 5-0. N5, approve the revisions to the board policy administrative rate 6145 on extracurricular and co-curricular activities.
Yes, I worked with. Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Okay, if you want me to present this, I worked with the athletic directors and some of the assistant principals to revise this extracurricular policy. The first step was to remove the COVID language that was based on legislation that expired. But the added revision was regarding probationary language and extending it to all grades. There were several reasons why we wanted to do this. One of the biggest was our intention to keep students participating in activities that connect them with school. and help maintain their mental health and keep them learning all the things that they learn while participating in extracurricular activities, and not allow them to fall further behind due to disengagement with school. So we wanted to, especially in these times and as we learn through COVID, we don't want to lose students. And sometimes these extracurriculars are what keeps them in school, keeps them engaged, keep them positive and interested. Another reason was the new full-time position that the board approved in the summer, the Student Success Coordinator. And that's a full-time position at each of our schools. And it really has provided schools with a substantial increase in their ability to provide students assistance and tutoring and that sort of thing. And this position is included in the new probationary language. Just to summarize the language, it requires students to pass 20 units. That's the CIF requirement. But if they're below 2.0 GPA, then they go on probation. If they have 1 F, and this is from our old policy, they need to create with their teacher and now with the Student Success Coordinator an academic improvement plan, have it signed by the coach and the teacher of the class with the F grade. And then all of the students on probation, whether or not it's an F, they have an F or not, but all the students that are on probation, they have to sign in and attend an additional 3 hours a week of studying or tutoring with a Student Success Coordinator. And these positions are mainly in the libraries or other homework centers, but usually in the libraries. And these 3 hours would be in addition to the flex time and tutorial periods that all of our campuses have, 2 hours a week or something like that. So these would be in addition to that. And so the big thing here is that we've expanded probation from just the 11th grade of what it was previously to all grades, but they couldn't be on probation more than once a year and not more than twice in 4 years. And Steve Sell also is with us, if anybody.
So they can actually only be on probation 2 times.
In 4 years, yeah, and only one per year.
Once per year.
So that's 6 weeks. That's only 6 weeks.
Okay. That's
Trustee Land.
Hopefully, yeah, that's enough.
Trustee Land.
Thank you. Interestingly, so this is 6145 and then 6145.1 is what we discussed earlier. I'm wondering, just to try to be innovative and not thinking outside the box, could this Student Success Coordinator help with the recruiting of vaccinations and helping these students be successful in that? I mean, that could be part of what they do. Because again, what I really am hoping for is that we find success here. And so anyway, I just thought that was interesting. Also, it has administrative regs as well as board policy. I wonder if we would do the same for the 6145.1. Be administrative regs. It's getting late, so getting a little ornery.
Yeah.
You caught it from me.
But seriously, the point that I wanted to make was about could we have the Student Success Coordinator help with the other board policy that we're considering to really make it successful for the kids? Because again, you said some really important things that was brought up earlier, which is, we want kids to be involved. We don't want them to drop out because they can't do something or they can't get the vaccination or they can't whatever. So I think this is another point where this success coordinator can help.
I mean, I guess the question and concern I'd have, and it's a good observation, is to the extent they have the capacity to do more than, and I don't know how many students they'd be, how many points.
I don't know the answer. That's why I'm asking.
But it's certainly a good.
It's a suggestion.
Yeah, good suggestion.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I move approval.
And I have a
There's 2
question.
people.
Oh, sorry.
You got Steve, you got Lika.
Yeah, and it's probably hard to see the hand on all these colors behind me.
Yellow
Too much amarillo.
All right. I wanted to ask, with the policy being that, kids are only allowed to 2 times being on probation and things like that, there are, special circumstances for some students. depending if it's like attendance or, you know, homework or whatever it is. Is there room for special circumstances, for example, students that have to work to support their families and get home late and then end up, you know, late to school, or people that, you know, get rides from other people or bus or whatever it is, right? Like, is there room for special circumstances? And then, you know, working with the coordinator, that would be, you know, also be important. But I just want to make sure that, you know, that there's certain things that are addressed that are not always what they seem, you know?
Right. Well, so probation would be available to, you know, all students, certainly whatever the reasons are that they didn't get the 2.0 GPA. You know, we have progress reports at 3 weeks. We have a lot of different types of interventions, tier 1s, tier 2. A lot of students that would fall under the 2.0 GPA are addressed in those different, in those manners of the tier 1 strategies, tier 2 strategies. And that includes things that happen outside of school, like you're saying, you know, when they have a lot of other things going on, work, commute issues, and those type of things. So probation isn't the only intervention, but certainly it's one of them, and they would be, of course, included in this. I think with our progress reports and with our student success coordinators helping students out, they do get to know the students and assist them and strategize with them with other issues that they're facing in their life. We have a pretty good support structure for our students.
Yeah, thank you.
So
I was just going to add that, and I wish I was clever enough to claim credit for adding the student success coordinator, but I've been in this district for almost 30 years now, and this might be one of the more significant moves that this district has made. I think this finds that fine line between accountability and empathy, and it's really worked at our school, where kids are required 3 hours to go and participate and to do this tutoring, and yet still participate, because once they become disengaged, they're kind of gone, and it's hard to get them back. And I have never, you know, probation periods are kind of tricky, and I would not support, you know, be a big fan of this if it wasn't for the student success coordinator. And it was actually the student success coordinator at our school that said, hey, this is a good long-term policy, not just for COVID. Not come out of the athletic directors. It came out of the student success coordinators, because I think they see the value in keeping these kids connected. And Greg, to your point, absolutely. I think they can absolutely have those kind of delicate conversations about, you know, you're doing all this work to become eligible. You know, maybe we think about going ahead and getting vaccinated, and, you know, and having those conversations.
Yeah.
Trustees Lee, Dwyer, you got your hand up.
I just wanted to tell Mr. Sell that we had Mr. Dobbins on the personnel list tonight, and I really do not want to see you on the personnel list. So I thought I'd make sure you.
Oh, thank you.
He's too young.
My hair is a little white.
Well, he said you said over 30 years. So
Yeah.
that made me think, and it's, you know, 10:40 here, that you really need to stay away from that personnel list.
Oh, I will. Thank you.
Okay.
And Dan Dobbins is a community treasure. He's a wonderful guy.
Well, you're kind of not far from that ilk.
Oh, thank you.
I make a motion to approve the.
I already made the motion.
Oh, second. All second.
Okay, we got trustees Lee, Dwyer with the motion, trustee Lamb with the second, trustee Andrade Zuniga. How do you vote?
Oh, yes.
Trustee Lamb.
Yes.
Trustee Lee, Dwyer.
Yes.
Trustee Hanley.
Yes.
I'll vote yes, and that motion will pass 5-0. And we're gonna turn the page and move to what?
We just adjourned.
The P1.
N6.
N6.
N6. This is a memorandum.
Sorry. Yeah. The MOU N6.
Yeah, for a memorandum of understanding for a new teacher residency program. We're very excited about this. Julia Kempke was the lead on this. She got me in contact with this program, and they have right now 68% of their residents, teacher residents, are people of color, and we had some very good meetings with them. It does cost some money. You know, we support the teachers in the program through the year, and then for about $14,000, and then $6,000 for each of the first 2 years that they're with the district, if they do continue with the district. But we really like the values of this program, the people who work there, and the results that they have given their other partners so far. So we really look forward to working with them if the board approves this tonight.
Questions, or is there a motion?
I have questions.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't, how did Ms. Kempke come upon this organization?
Is she here?
She's here.
How does she know them?
It was through actually Jeff Gilbert, the principal at Hillsdale, had a contact with them. And I'm not sure how he got in contact with them, but he passed along the contact, who then I passed along to Dr. Black.
Okay, I read I'm reading this addendum memorandum of understanding, and it's not with Marshall Residency Program, it's with Summit Preparatory Charter High School. And then you come down into the body of it. I really am, I'm struggling with the structure and why it's set up this way. It's very, very awkward. So our contract's not with this residency program, it's with Summit Charter School, which is really different. And then we would pay the Community High School Foundation the money or such other entity designated by Summit on behalf of the Marshall Teacher Residency, $14,000 for each resident that we take. It's very convoluted. I guess I'm asking you, who is this?
Okay, so they did talk to us about that, and that's how they were created through the charter program. I could get more information from them. That's their oversight.
Okay.
But
I would like a legal opinion, even just county council, to make sure that we're not participating in some sort of tax scheme or some effort to avoid someone paying taxes by the way this is all kind of sheltered. And also, why is our contract with a charter school versus the entity that's providing the residence? It's very convoluted. I would just like to feel good that the contract's legal and in our best interests.
Okay, we'll bring it back then. They did share that, it's been a challenge for them to be established and get districts to pay the $14,000 and whatnot.
Yeah.
And even recruit people. They do have their challenges, and I think that's how they came into being. But I can certainly run this by county council and get more information of their history for the next time we bring it to the board.
Yeah, because we're paying them to provide training for their people. But we're not really paying them. It's being funneled through a charter school, and which is then funneling it through Community High School Foundation or such other entity they designate. That's really awkward on contract language.
Okay. Yeah. This is similar to the Alder program that we had last year that also had about 68 people of color, but that was through the county, so it wasn't a charter school. Okay, let's try to clean their MOU up and try to bring it back.
They're not. I don't think the color. If you look at their website, there's a lot of people in there of different colors. So it's not. I would hope that would be getting what we think we're getting out of it too. That we're actually attracting people of different ethnicities into the district as teachers. So I would kind of look at that too. That's just my
Trustee Land.
I would just love a little bit more background if you guys could put that into weekly. It's kind of any research that you could say about how this organization formed through the charter school, you know, how did it really develop? I'd like a little bit more background.
Got it. Yes. Okay.
Okay, so you'll bring this back.
I'll do the research and get the county council and bring it back. Yes.
Are we done yet?
Okay, P1, 2020, 2021 unaudited actuals.
Under 60 seconds. Go.
Mr. Hawkins, we have a, do we have a requirement to have this done by a certain time?
This item, yeah, it has to be accepted and sent to the County Office of Ed by September 15th of each year.
So tonight we have to do this.
Correct.
So I imagine the board has looked at this item before the meeting. Can you do I mean, it is almost 11. So can you do a quick Cliff Notes version? I don't know if Cliff Notes is still around, but if it is.
At least I recognize that. Every other slide.
Yeah, I can do I can speed up the presentation. There's going to be a couple high items I really want to hit on, so I will have to go over those, but I'll try to go quickly. So I can't not thank Valerie Miller and Vanessa Castano for doing all the heavy lifting on this. So just thank you on that. So unaudited actuals, this is us closing the books from the 2020-2021 year as of June 30th, 2021. Next slide. I'm going to focus on a couple of things of things on the agenda. Really, the first two: the impact of the COVID pandemic on the district's budget, and just the overall estimated actuals. The estimated actuals and the unaudited actuals. I'll also go over ending fund balance trends, program carryover, one-time COVID relief funding, and our next steps. Next slide. So there's been 5 real impacts of the COVID pandemic on the district budget. The first was that there were significant additional needs instructionally, safety-wise, operation-wise, mostly last year, but also continuing into this year. There are also significant long-term COVID impacts academically and social and emotionally, and so that will require additional expenditures to support those. There was significant revenue, over $15 million, to support the immediate and the impacts over the next few years. Many expenses were delayed, specifically for San Mateo. Special education and technology related expenditures were delayed. You'll see that in components of the ending fund balance. And lastly, we did have significant savings, primarily in our classified side of our budget, in unfilled positions, as well as classified positions that were repurposed into the impacts of the immediate impacts of COVID on the district. Next slide. From when we brought the estimated actuals, which we bring at the adopted budget at the end of June, to the unaudited actuals, we saw improvements on our unrestricted general fund and an overall a very strong financial position in the district, which will be important over the next few years. Next slide. This is a look at our fund balance over the last 5 years. We continue to have a strong ending fund balance, and we will need that to support some of those needs that we talked about as the ongoing impacts of COVID that we will continue to see over the next few years. Next slide. We have $7.8 million of program carryover, including $1.3 million at the site level, as detailed here. This is relatively in line with prior years, although a little bit raised at each site. Next slide. This is a change, and this is based on those significant grants that I noted earlier, but we do have some significant restricted state grants of $6.5 million. In addition, we have an additional $2.7 million of grants that have received, but for accounting purposes are deferred year over year. So they're included in deferred revenue at the end of the year. That's about 2.7 million. Next slide. In terms of one-time COVID relief funding, we noted that we've received a significant amount, over 15 million. This details that. I won't go into a lot of details because Dr. Kempke and Mr. Simmons will be bringing a full report on COVID one-time funding at the September 23rd board meeting. So I'll leave them to give you the detail on that. Next steps. In terms of next steps, I want to focus on two areas. Really continuing to monitor the impact of the COVID pandemic. We've talked about just different initiatives tonight, and we continue to talk about different items around the continued impacts of COVID. So we'll need to monitor that. And then the second one, I think, is going to be the key from a budget standpoint, is focusing on the implementation and then the unraveling of our one-time expenditures. When you have over $15 million of one-time funding, that's hard to spend, and we've spent a lot on different programs that have been very beneficial. But we're going to have to, as the funding goes away, we're going to have to see which of those are ones that we may keep and which ones are going to have to be unraveled over the next couple of years. So we're also looking, obviously, at our property taxes, monitoring our enrollment, staffing, and special education funding, enrollment, and costs. With that, I'm happy to open it up to any questions.
Trustee Land.
Actually, Linda was first, but
I can't see her hand because it's colored pink background. Trustee Lees Dwyer.
I wanted to say thank you for the details on the COVID money. Thank you, Vanessa and Valerie, too. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, I'll echo that. Thank you, guys, ladies, too. My question really was about one of the slides. I saw ELO funds at 5.5 on one, and then I saw funds of 6.7 million on the other, and I'm wondering why the discrepancy.
Trustee Land, the ELO funds initially came out as state funding, and with a single resource code, and we don't have time to get into what the resource code is. The state has, in its infinite wisdom, decided to break up that funding and fund it out of several different pots that they've gotten from state funding, but also several different federal funds included in the different. So some of those funds fall to the bottom line, and other of those funds are listed in that $2.7 million of deferred revenue that I noted. So ELO funds technically are now actually 5 separate grants that we've gotten.
Okay.
And so some of them sit as ending fund balance, and some of them, if they haven't been spent, sit as unearned revenue on our books. It's just an accounting, but I will promise that Dr. Kempke and Mr. Simmons will be bringing you more detail around that spending. And yes, the total of, hold on, the 6.215 in terms of
so that it's overall
is the updated amount.
Okay, that's kind of what I wanted to know. Thanks.
Correct.
Okay, any other questions? Ms. Chalkley, there's a couple of hands, and I meant to, are you monitoring in case there was a public comment that's those attendee hands?
Mr. Griffin, we typically monitor the comments email versus the hand raising. So yes, I am watching the comments.
Thank you. I have just a quick question on the site carryover. There were some rather large carryovers. Was that also as a result of the CARES money and all this, the other money, or was that just sandbagging on the part of the sites? Or do you have do you have an opinion?
Oh, no, I was going to make a joke about sandbagging at the sites, but no, these are relatively in line, Trustee Griffin, President Griffin, with what they've been in the prior years. So they have kept some relatively significant balances. They are up a little bit. I think it's overall up about a couple 100,000 from what it was last year. But that was pretty much in line with our expectation, given all the things that they had to plan for that may or may not have actually, happened, similar to our sports programs, et cetera. We had to plan for them going full, and some of them went partially and some of them didn't go at all. So,
yeah. Okay. Well, any other comments? Okay, we need to adopt the unaudited actuals.
Yes, you need to accept the unaudited actuals.
I make a motion to accept the unaudited actuals.
Second.
Okay, so we have Trustee Lamb with the motion, Trustees Lees Dwyer with the second. Trustee Andrade Zuniga, how do you vote?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Vanessa and Valerie. Sorry it's so late.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Trustee Land.
Yes, and thank you.
Trustees Lees Dwyer.
Yes.
Trustee Hanley.
Yes.
Okay, I'll vote yes, and the adoption passes 5-0. And we're going to move on to board operations. I heard two comments today, and Trustee Andrade Zuniga actually expressed a specific request, and we will honor her request. And to tell you the truth, and then Trustee Hanley and I talked generally about the fact that we really didn't get an opportunity to know our schools and do things.
That's
so
true.
We will come back next week. The agenda is virtually in place for the 23rd, because unless somebody has a compelling statement tonight on it, or you can call me, we're probably going to roll a lot of these over and let people work on their assignments from last year. So
yeah, I would really prefer that, because I did not have that much opportunity. We didn't last year, and I'd like to stick with San Bruno and CAP if at all possible.
Okay.
I think the only thing I would say is I've never gotten to work with Design Tech, D-Tech. That's the only school that I haven't been able to get connected with at some point in time.
Okay, I'll put that down, and we will see what comes out of it. Yeah, I think you were reading minds earlier, so you can read my mind and see what you get out of it. So
otherwise, yeah, I didn't get a San Mateo one more time is good.
Okay, then we have the specific board administrative reg 3514 environmental safety. Anybody have any comments on that? Will this go to consent?
That's correct.
Okay, we will move that to consent. In terms of our requested items, I want to add an item that has.
Could we get some perspective, like a date next to each one, like a prospective date, just so we keep something moving?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll see dates in the future, and TBD is not a date.
TBD is not a date. I like that.
So the public comment, it came up, and Lord knows it's probably going to come up the 23rd, when people are unable to make meetings, and how we communicate, how we get their communication, or how it can be included in the board package. So, other people can read it. I don't know that we're going to solve that problem. I don't even know if I can define it properly, but I'd like to try to deal with that item, particularly in this virtual environment.
So what if we take this up, Mr. Griffin, with Mr. Hanley during agenda setting next week, and report back to the board with either a plan that we can, try out for the 23rd.
That's
Or
fine.
whatever. Other districts are struggling with this issue as well, particularly as they, when we move back into in-person board meetings, which is by the state's standards expected October 1st. How do you handle public comments? Do you have people come? There's there's districts doing various things there.
Okay.
Well, there's some legislation that's coming through the State Council for Developmental Disabilities. It's actually asking to expand the ability to meet virtually. So I don't think I want to say the decision will come out in the next couple weeks. So maybe we can wait till then and then just kind of finalize everything. Although next week or next meeting is going to be a little people might want to do that there, but maybe we can talk about it at that point if that does come through.
Yeah, we'll be watching for that as well. Thank you for that.
Okay, all I wanted was put on the list, Trustee
Linda Lees.
Okay.
Real quick.
You raise your
real quick.
hand, you pointed.
Well, because
Trustee.
You're pointing the
Dwyer.
clock. Oh, I just think it's a real shame. I mean, I think that so many more people are able to participate in the board meetings because they're on Zoom, and our employees who work all day, not, we do too, but, all the principals, all the people that would come to the meeting could enjoy it from their home and participate. And I hate to see us, I'm hoping we could come up with some hybrid thing that allow our employees to be able to watch from their homes. I really do. And all the public, anybody who wants to. It's made it such, we have so many more people, and I feel like we're representing them better because they're there. They're coming. So anyway, it's just my comment.
Yeah.
I like your concept of hybrid. I think that's the best way to go. Yeah. Can I just make one comment about the emails? I noticed that in the Jefferson Elementary School District, what they do is one board member or a designee reads the emails as pertinent to the topic that's talked about. And they say this, and then here's the email. They kind of summarize it. They don't read the whole thing, but they read kind of like a summary of it. And then they just read several of them in a row. I mean, that's what they do.
Okay, well, as long as I'm not reading them.
Well, designee.
Yeah, we could share.
Laura could read them.
Yeah.
While she's watching all the people.
While she's watching everything else. Yeah.
I know.
She's loving that idea.
Okay. Anything else to put on this list?
I have 2 items.
Okay, well, I think.
Ciao.
Whoa.
That's a goodbye.
Okay.
That's it.
Honk, Greg, honk when you drive by.
I was gonna say I'm honking my phone, my car when I drive by.
Ms. Dwyer, can I call you right after this meeting closes about tomorrow?
Yes, me? Yes, definitely.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Everyone.